nice up there, or it was?
It's been great. They got rain yesterday. We need that too.
They did up there, right?
Yeah, and there was some rain last Saturday, but it was kind of like hit and miss.
You running?
Nope.
Oh.
Not being in the mud.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we are all set.
Okay, well, it is April 15th, and we're gonna call up to order the regular meeting of the Rico Board of Trustees. It is 7 o'clock, 7:02. Trustees present are Scott Poston, Greg Anderson, Ben Bernadakis, Crystal Hibbard, Tom Clark, Garish Willis, and myself, Pat Bellin. First on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Anybody have concerns over the agenda? No?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 18th regular meeting.
I noticed one spelling error under pavilion rental policy, the word within. Other than that, I have no other comment.
With that correction, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from March 18th, 2026.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Next on the agenda is the payment of the bills. Anna, anything we should know about the bills that you haven't provided us with already?
I do have a few more bills here, including paychecks and our CEBT, which is our health care premium. Those are checks that I've made out since the bills were paid. You'll see on the water fund, there's 3 bills. I had it pulled up now, they are for the water crossing. One is Alpine Consulting, one is Terra Firma. Yes, and there's one more. That is also, those are all for the Dolores River crossing, they're just not ones that we see on a daily basis. Other than that, I don't have anything. Just trying to pull it up just in case.
I've got a question. So there's 2 entries for a fund, one for 195 and one for 50. But we have 2 different accounts.
No, so if you look at the top of the check registry, you can see which fund it's coming out of.
Okay,
So we, the $50 one is the phone for the public works office. The 195 is the clerk's phone, the town manager's phone, and the internet for this building. And then you'll also see one. No, there's
Water fund?
there's one for the water fund.
Yeah.
Out of the water fund, so,
The water fund one is the internet for the well.
okay,
So that's why they're all, it's one account, we just pay for it out of the, I send them 3 checks with one, so that's because they're meant to be paid for from their own account.
very good, thank you.
Same with San Miguel Power, we have 8, 9 accounts with them, so we send from almost all of our accounts a check.
Any other questions on the bills? I will move to approve payment of the bills.
I'll second that, Pat.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Next up, public comment for non-agendized items only. You had something to bring up?
Yeah, Skip Zeller asked me to, request for the town cleanup. First of all, he was hoping that the town and town staff would approve the use of the same area down there in our rec center below. For the town cleanup, he said that he would provide security during the evening for it and just hope that we would allow him to do that. And he also brought up that last year, I guess the town, as a raffle prize for him, just to motivate people to help clean. I guess, 1 free months of water. Bill paid, I don't remember that myself, but he asked if we would do that. He is having cataract surgery, I guess, he already had it today, so he asked that I would bring that up and see if we were agreeable to that.
It was the use of the town shop has been dealt with at a staff level. I think that's all good to go.
I recall the raffle item.
I do recall.
I know there was something in there that the town gave, but.
Did we provide the dumpster last year?
No, that was the Rico Land Collaborative.
Okay,
And they're gonna do the same this year, and I think they're also working on the possibility of having a wood chipper and truck to receive it for people who would like to do fire mitigation, tree branches, whatever is acceptable in that
That's an
situation can go down there, so it's all in the works, and like I said, I think that's all being dealt with at a staff level. If we wanna give
It's-
away months
it
of
should-
water for a raffle ticket, I think we can make that decision now. Chauncey, you have something to say?
I was just gonna say it's scheduled for May 9th. It's a Saturday. Clean up as what happened last year, clean up town, clean up your yards, and then the chipper and that type of stuff is forthcoming, working out the details still.
How's the board feel about giving away a month's of water bill for a raffle donation?
I think that's reasonable.
All in favor, no opposed? All right.
Aye.
Chauncey, you got that?
Yep, yeah, I'll pass the message back to Skip. Thank you.
Very good. No other public comment, no newcomers. Next on the agenda is the appointment of a Rico Planning Commission seat. The Planning Commission has one regular seat expiring January 28th and two alternate seats available. We have received a letter, we've been advertising this for a little while now, right? Yeah, so we have received one letter of interest from Joanna Yonder. Your name was misspelled in the packet, I almost said it wrong. Is there anything you'd like to say that wasn't in your letter?
Not really, just that I'm excited to be here and would love to serve.
Very good. Board discussion, whoever'd like to. No?
I think it should be great.
Okay,
I'm happy to make a motion.
make a motion.
I move to appoint Joanna Yonder to the one open regular seat on the planning commission with the term expiring January 2028.
I'll second that.
John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Garish?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Congratulations. I know you like reading, so Anna's gonna get you a big book to start reading, studying, getting to know well. It's the key to everything. I mean, planning truly is the key to everything, in my opinion, so thank you.
And just really quick, I know that there is, on the agenda for the rest of tonight's meeting, a little bit about church, policy. Are you guys all set on that, or do you need me to stick around for that discussion as well?
I mean, I think we're pretty clear on that.
Great.
I
I wanted to be
believe
sure
it's
you
up to
guys
you. If
feel
you wanna sit through the meeting, if you wanna go home and watch us on YouTube and come back when you think the time's right, I don't know. It's entirely up to you.
Thank you. I've sat through a lot of these meetings lately and I've enjoyed them all, but maybe not tonight.
Understood.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank
Thank you.
All right.
And like I said, get with Anna. She will give you
A book to read.
a book to read.
I'm ready.
A book to comprehend and, or at least reference when you need to.
Great. Thanks so much. Anna.
Let's make sure to give it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good rest of your day.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, give it attention.
Next on the agenda is a consideration of second reading of ordinance 2026-01, an ordinance of the town of Rico adopting the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. We've been through this a bunch. There's been a lot of commotion out there in the state about it. It was rough. They were trying to pass a bill that would prolong it a year. That did not happen. So as of now, our deadlines are consistent with what they were before. So with that said, we can open up the board discussion, concerns, or if there's anything come up since the last time we've talked about it.
I appreciated the fact sheet that I assume Chauncey put together. I think that was a really great way to summarize this very large piece of regulation for folks in town that have had questions, so.
And my understanding is the state's gonna push this back to April next year.
No.
No, that's what did not.
Did not pass.
Did not pass.
Thank you.
Did not pass.
I think the biggest thing to be aware of is that the deadline was April 1, but the effective date's by July. The state is going to compile a list of all jurisdictions who this code applies to, and see if they're in compliance or out of compliance. There just hasn't been a determination or any communication from this wildfire code board on what that means once the list is in hand. There's no penalty enforcement mechanism for lack of adoption, but there will be this public list available to insurers, to community members, to all these players. So that is where the rubber starts to meet the road on the adoption terms.
Now, I know that, I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of concerns, a lot of open matters with the whole code, and that's the state-wide consensus. You know, even CML was in support of the bill to put it off another year until they could work a lot of that out. It simply did not happen. So.
I have a
I'm back
question.
here.
Who does there was something called ground truthing? If a builder or a property owner wants to seek an exemption, who does the ground truthing? We do, or does the state? Chauncey?
That's a combination of two, but essentially the town can ground truth or bring in consultants if it's concerns on mapping or classification, if there's building materials or best management practices or things of that nature in the building realm. Then they can work with suppliers to provide the lab fact test sheets. And then there's an opportunity for not necessarily variances, but code ways for. That was the nice thing about the code that, or the amendment that didn't make it forward, is it gave landowners and residents of Colorado the opportunity to go in for a variance, work for a code amendment. Now a town would have to go through that. So it's kind of multifaceted. It's at all three levels: the developer, landowner, the town, and the state for ground truthing.
Okay, thanks.
Ready to make a motion. If there's no more discussion, we're gonna
Take no public comment real fast, nobody? Okay.
I wanted to bring something up too then, just before we do pass this, we will, but when I was digging around today, it looked like it would be they estimated a 2.7%, which they thought, which is not much depending on perspective, increase in building a home. So while this makes this is a vision for, it's a rational vision for home building in the future, which we don't have a lot of. I mean, this is not a high growth area, but at the same time, it makes home building more expensive during an inflationary cycle. And I just wanted to bring that aspect up.
I do believe that number is vague and we don't know. We're gonna find out. I know Durango is estimating 20% increase in the cost of building.
That's more realistic as a builder.
So, but,
Tell you right now.
you know, and there's no determination on the cost to the towns.
Yeah.
I don't know what, you know, we're a small town, our costs are gonna be much smaller than someone like Durango for administrative and so forth and so forth, but, yeah, it's gonna make things more
It's gonna
expensive.
make things more expensive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Saving the
So-
planet's not cheap.
No, and infrastructure ages and homes age and get outdated and,
Saving our homes, not saving the planet.
is saving our homes is a good thing, you know.
You know, those-
I mean, but this all applies to new homes, so I don't think we're seeing.
Or renovation.
Or renovation, I think, yeah, a lot of 500 square feet.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it affects a lot of things.
it does, it
All
affects a
about
lot.
fire resiliency, but at the same time, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. We could talk about it all night. At the end of the night, we're pretty much forced to adopt this code or be not compliant, so I don't know.
That's, no, no.
I think I have really like, pretty much how it's imposed on us too, but it's a rational vision for building in the future, you know? So. I just wish it came more organically from us rather than Colorado without any resources to enforce it or back us up on it. Right, the way it is.
Very good. If there's no other comments, Gary, should continue with your motion.
Okay. I, when I lost it, hang on. But anyway, move to, approve the second reading of ordinance number 2026-01, an ordinance of the town of Rico, Colorado, accepting the Colorado wildfire resiliency code. Would you like me to read some more?
Well, no, I think that's thorough.
I think we're adopting, not accepting the code, but
Second reading,
The first reading, this is the second reading.
this is second reading.
Yes.
no, I know, he just said accept and not
Oh,
adopt.
yeah.
Just was correcting the motion,
What did I say?
accept, but we're adopting the code.
Oh, adopting rather than accepting. Yes, I accept that.
Okay, I second with the amendment.
Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes.
Garish,
Yes.
aye. Unanimous. It's been adopted, not yet implemented, right? Do we have to do a whole nother round here to implement? Chauncey, how does the implementation take place?
No, that basically it's effective immediately. So people submitting for development applications and for building permits, structures bigger than 120 square feet will have to comply to the code. We will see, I know it is unfunded and there's a lot of concern in that. They did just fund some positions with DFPC to help with plan review. So ideally, and for our community, our plans would go out to our plan review firm, and concurrent to that, they would go out to the DFPC and they would do the wildfire review, code review compliance for no cost to the town. We get the green light on both of those. We can do it in-house too if it's going to materially delay a construction project, but as of tonight, that code becomes effective immediately.
Very good. We'll move on. Next is the consideration of the first reading of ordinance 2026-02, an ordinance of the town of Rico repealing ordinance number 2017-01, amending the Rico Land Use Code and adopting the town of Rico on-site wastewater treatment system regulations. 2 months ago, we had the discussion, answering a lot of questions, what we wanted, what we didn't want, and it's all compiled for us here today. You have questions, comments, Chauncey, is there anything you'd like to add?
The only thing I'd like to add is the state provided some feedback. So for this process, the board's decisions that were made a couple months ago, that was sent to the state. They had some remarks on a couple items. So there was a little bit of a red line back and forth. So you'll see some more substantive changes to test pits and those requirements, and then some noticing requirements as well. But beyond that, the material that the board decided upon, or the code the board decided upon, regulations, what was allowed, not allowed, restrictions for slope angle, those are all within the regulation itself. The one thing I do want to flag is in 2017, the Board of Trustees adopted this through a land use code amendment, which placed the septic regulations within the land use code, the Town of Rico WTS rules and regulations in Appendix A with the tables. This amendment would remove that out of the code. Briefly, as you can see in the exhibit, give a section in the land use code saying that they have to follow most recent rules and regulations adopted by town. So a much more similar path we've seen in the water rules and regulations, and we'll probably in the next year or two see in floodplain regulations or some standalone development codes outside of the land use codes. That's probably one of the biggest changes we see.
Hey, there he is.
That's you.
Are you just kind of?
Um. Questions, concerns, how we feeling about the on-site wastewater treatment regulations being updated?
Same thing, we get all the thing is, the last one state does, you have to.
I feel real good about it.
You know, that you built yours a couple years ago.
Yeah, get out of it.
I mean, we talked about this in detail. We went through all of our options. I think we're all familiar with it. This shouldn't be a surprise. And very comfortable moving forward.
Yeah, we'll move it forward. Give me a motion.
Are we gonna ask for any public comment?
Public comment. Looking at these guys, I'm not getting much attention.
I'll make a motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number 2026-2, an ordinance of the town of Rico, Colorado, repealing ordinance number 2017-01, amending the Rico Land Use Code and adopting the town of Rico on-site wastewater treatment system regulations.
Second.
Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Ben? Yes. Crystal?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Gary? Aye. Unanimous. Next on the agenda is the consideration of first reading of an ordinance 2026-03, an ordinance of the town of Rico, Colorado, approving the sale of town-owned property located at 119 South Glasgow. Due to my special interest in the fire department, I am going to recuse myself from this as well as the next item and hand it over to our mayor pro tem, Mr. Rivers.
I'm here for Rico Fire Protection District, if anybody have a question.
Johnson.
They want me to leave us alone, tough decision.
Chauncey, what do you have for us on this?
So this has been ongoing for quite a few years now, to bring some of the trustees up to speed, because they might not have been involved when the MOU was signed. The district, many moons ago in the late 90s, I want to say, built the fire station on a piece of land that was conveyed from a developer to the town. The intent at that time, from the research we've done, was that that would all get conveyed back to the fire district, so they'd own the land outright and the building. Fire department came to the town with that proposal. There was a back and forth, and then somewhat recently there was an MOU that came out that set the intent of the transfer and what that would look like in terms of legal costs, what the building can be used for, essentially covenants on the building, a right of first offer, and some of those things. That document that was agreed upon and approved by the board, also by the fire district, was used to provide the deed restriction that you see in the ordinance that's proposed tonight, that essentially would, if the ordinance approved after 2 readings in a 30-day effective period, the deed from the property would be signed to the fire district. They would own the land and the building, which the building is their asset outright, with some revisionary clauses. If the district was dissolved, it reverts back to the town. If the district was to sell, the town would have the first right to make an offer based upon depreciation value of just the building, and then some use restrictions which align with, EMS, fire service, community functions. So I think it meets the intent. It's my understanding that I know for a fact that town attorney is comfortable with this agreement. It's my understanding that the district's attorney is. I'm not certain that they've reviewed this, but essentially, if the town makes action on this through 2 readings, through our home rule charter, there's a 30-day effective period, a referendum period for citizens, any real property transfer. After that, the ordinance becomes effective. With the contingency that the fire district offers this deed restriction back to the town. So at closing, the deed would be signed and this other agreement would be signed. For whatever reason, if this other agreement, deed restriction, was not signed, then the town isn't authorized to convey the land and sign the deed.
Okay. I have a question. This was on the agenda for last meeting. Was there a specific reason it was delayed?
there was a back and forth by the attorneys just on some verbiage. There was no, I would say there was no material change, just some sequencing of how the right of first offer went and some noticing periods that were modified, but there were no material changes in that. And at that time, the agreement was put in front of the board. There hadn't been a consensus on the fire district yet. There was a slight back and forth, and essentially, after more consideration, it made more sense to provide this as an ordinance. The town could approve the agreement, but the town is the beneficiary of the restriction, not the one conveying it. So it needs to be presented with this ordinance as a consideration during the closing of the property or a contingency.
Okay. Yeah, the right of first offer is definitely the most complex part of this, so I understand why there was probably a delay. Any comments from the board?
I just had a question, there's a deed restriction, I just got confused, does that stay in place or does that go away with the sale?
So that would, if the town doesn't execute the right to purchase and it ends up in a third party, it's my understanding that that agreement no longer lives with the property. If the district was to sell and decided not to sell, anytime the district is the owner of the property, they're the ones giving those rights back to the town. So that's the only time it would be effective. If the district decided to sell in the future and the town did not want to purchase the property back, then that would dissolve as they sell to a different private party.
Okay, I see.
Anyone else? No. Is there any public comment? Our audience has doubled.
Well, I'll make a motion then.
Okay.
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance 2026-03, an ordinance of the town of Rico, Colorado, approving the sale of town owned property located at 119 South Glasgow Avenue.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Scott, how do you vote?
Yes,
Tommy?
Yes,
Girish? I am also a yes. So that passes on the first reading, so we'll see that again in May. Oh, I did have a question. I noticed that the ordinance does have Pat signing it, and since he was recused from this item, is that still appropriate?
We will update that. I wasn't certain if Pat would recuse himself as a volunteer firefighter. He's on the fire department versus this is a district decision, but with his comfort or wanting to recuse himself, we'll update the sign location on that ordinance to reflect Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. And the next item also has to do with the fire department. So it's the consideration of a liquor license special event permit for the Rico Fire Protection District event, July 2nd through July 5th, 2026 at Fire Station 119 South Glasgow Avenue. So that is the 4th of July weekend. It's like we have the full application here. Anything you would like to note for us, Chauncey?
This is just something that Anna flagged. We think it's a good step in the right direction in terms of being the liquor authority and enforcement. They have done stuff in past events, and this will just make sure that they're properly permitted. No concerns with the permit or any of the site locations or design. Anna can probably answer additional questions if needed.
Okay. Is this for sale of alcoholic beverages or just consumption for sale?
Any event that is open to the public needs a special event permit, even if it's free out.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is just checking some extra boxes that haven't been checked in the past with 3 people on our board who are also affiliated with the department as well as the town manager. This just seemed to be the right way to go about this moving forward with the $10 fee for the department, and the application is complete and compliant. It's just something that we should be doing.
Okay. It's said $40 on this, but it's handwritten. Was that just someone's note on there?
Let's see, it's $10, just, they do $40, I gotta need to check on it, but it's supposed to be $10, because it's just for beer.
Understood,
So if they wanted to
included-
do margaritas, then it'd be $25. Oh, $40 because they have 4 days, so per day. Oh, sorry,
There
sorry.
we go, thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the board? It's wild, 4th of July is coming quickly, I guess.
Yes.
Any public comment on this item? Well, if that's the case, I can make a motion. I move to approve the liquor license special event permit for the Rico Fire Protection District event July 2nd through July 5th, 2026 at the Rico Fire Station, 119 South Glasgow.
That's second.
Ooh, I'm gonna give that one to Scott.
Oh.
You guys were perfectly in sync. Any further discussion? Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trish?
I,
Tom?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That is approved. And we can welcome back our fire department members.
thank you, Crystal.
No problem.
Thank you.
Also on the agenda, I believe it's a similar item regarding the Rico Trails Alliance request for a special event permit for liquor license on June 11th at 21 South Glasgow. And complete compliant.
Complete compliant. I had to re-notice it, but I think that they're cleaning the side of the wall, so I put it on the side of the mine shaft and then I put it on the barrel. But all within the same day, so yes, I'm fully compliant, that's the only thing for that. Take up that for a half an hour, it wasn't noticed on the wall.
Board discussion, concerns. Public comment,
I move to approve the special event liquor license permit for the Rico Trails Alliance 503C fundraising event on July 11th, 2026.
I'll second.
Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
Greg,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Garish,
I,
aye.
Go through this fast.
Next up, consideration of Q1 financial statements, the fun stuff. Chauncey, Hannah, anybody would like to brief or add or reiterate what's in our packet?
The only things that I'd like to add that were not in the packet is there's a change in property tax remittance, and people in the county have the ability, I believe, to do like monthly payments. So this year we expect to see property taxes trickle in slower. Right now, we'd probably see a larger swing and be closer to 70% for the kind of the year out, what we expect. This year we're much lower. We're also a little slower to kick off sales tax, but it was also a very quiet winter with just amount of people in the community. So those are two things to kind of flag at the onset of the discussion. I think the all of the funds are looking really strong right now. There's no major concerns. Happy to answer anything beyond what was in the packet or go into any depth on any of the line items per each fund. The one other thing I should flag is just slight uptick in some taxes because we stopped paying into Social Security. So that wasn't budgeted out this year, but there was a Q4 payment that carried into this 2026 fiscal year that skewed the budget on that line item that will most likely have to correct with a budget amendment later into this budget cycle, depending upon how the rest of the expenditures line out for the general fund.
I have a question. And I think you've explained this once before, Johnson, but what is the purpose of the conservation fund?
Yes, the Conservation Trust Fund is a formulaic grant from the state of Colorado. It's funded by the proceeds of lottery tickets. It's remitted quarterly to towns, and the formula is driven based upon population.
Yeah, from the town's perspective, what do we use those funds for?
Okay, yes, that thank you for clarifying. We can only use those funds for capital projects. So no O&M, no staffing, no repairs, just new infrastructure, major overhaul to existing infrastructure.
Thank you.
Was that used for the new, like, children's playground equipment?
Yeah, we drew down the majority of that fund for the pavilion as part of that project.
And I had another just general question. I was curious, I was just totally curious. How's the highway user tax calculated for the town?
That's another great question. So highway user tax, annually, we submit a form that has off-highway miles and then on-highway miles, and based upon those numbers, there's another formula, and it's based on gasoline tax. So it's our percentage share of gas tax at the pump, and I think, and I may be mistaken because I'm not incredibly familiar with EV vehicles, but I believe that EVs also pay some at registration that comes to the DOR and then remitted back to the town as the Huff highway user tax.
And is this specifically then the user fee for people driving through town using a highway? In
It's
our
Yeah, it's
limit?
based upon I believe it's based upon highway and off highway miles. So it's about 6 miles of road through this town. That's what goes into the programming, and then we get a percentage of all taxes. I think remitted monthly. Anna, is that correct?
Yep.
Remitted monthly based upon the previous month's gasoline sales at the pump and taxes collected then. So we were expecting CML. You do see that line item tracking really high. CML does the accounting and the analytics behind that at the close of the year and provide a little bit before the close of the year during budget cycle and provide a spreadsheet of forecasted highway user taxes for every municipality and county in the state. That's where we pull that budget number from. But I think that there was just the analysts didn't foresee additional cars on the highway and potentially additional gasoline increases over the last couple months.
Okay. It doesn't take into account like when it doesn't have any way of taking into account like when there's a lot more trucks carrying heavy loads.
No,
Like
it doesn't. It does. It's not a tool or an impact fee if you have overweight vehicles. Those are actually overweight vehicles in most instances are more so permitted by county on certain slips or things they carry in the car, but no, it doesn't have that impact. It's just truly petrol sales at the pump. The money that's collected in taxes, a percentage of that is then remitted back to the communities.
Okay, thanks very much.
More board discussion regarding the financials? Public comment? I will move to approve the Q1 financial statements for fiscal year 2026.
I'll second.
Don, how do you vote?
Aye.
Greg?
Yes.
Ben? Yes. Crystal?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Garish? Aye. Unanimous. That's, takes care of that list of action items.
No, there's one more, right? So letters, board.
Oh, there is. I'm sorry. Also, now, perhaps it should do. Consideration of a letter of support for the Rico Land Collaborative Grant request. The letter has been provided in our packet. They're requesting a grant to remove derelict fencing from Angle Cabin and Burnett Roads in adjacent forested areas. And simply.
I think it's a great idea. The concern I have is that a lot of those fences are on private land. And I wonder if they would make an attempt to get a hold of the landowners before they get a bunch of volunteers out there taking down fences that probably are falling down anyway, but.
Yeah,
That's
Garish.
about it.
Trustee Willis, they do have verbal confirmation from the 4 landowners this would affect, and they said if needed by the grant committee for the Monolores Coalition, they could also get written confirmation, but they have been in contact with these private property owners where this does come
Correct, thank you. Should hope we're not on private property taking down people's fences. Right?
No, I think it's fine as long as the private property owners are give them permission.
Agreed.
I think it's great.
I agree too. Those fences could be part of the old fire zones you covered from the way,
I think they're a hazard.
definitely.
Any more comment?
I'll make
Public
a
comment?
motion-
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve, the letter of support for the Rico Land Collaborative Grant Request.
I'll second that motion.
Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
Greg,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Garish,
Yes.
aye. Okay, now that's the end of the action items. Greg, you're up with the smart report.
Didn't have a meeting this month.
Okay.
Nothing new to report.
That takes care of that. Anna, you're up with the clerk's report.
I just have a few things, obviously closed out the Q1, it's already been reviewed. The porta potties are up and running, the porta potty is up and running in the park. The volleyball guys have been there 3, 4, 5 days a week, so figured it was time. And with the warmer weather, it just seemed there's a lot more use. I've also started to do my rounds with taking out the trash, both the hoop station up at the top of Mill and the ones at the one at the park and then the ones at the skate park, because everybody's out and about. I am not planting plants yet, but I did get some columbine roots to put in. Last year was really successful. I got about 20 columbine roots for those. Flower barrels, I planted whichever ones they didn't come up in last year, which was maybe 7. So just kind of trying to get those perennial plants going. The last thing I have is, Eddie's starting preschool next Monday, and with summer coming, with my husband's work schedule, and I've talked to the town manager about this, I need to change my office hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday I'd be opening just as normal, 8 to 5 with a 1-hour lunch break. Tuesday through Thursday, so I can drop her off, I will be opening at 9 to 5 with no lunch break. So it's the same hour coverage, it's just an hour later start. But I wanted to make that aware. I've had a sign on my door for the last 2 weeks or so since we figured out this time, and it will remain on my door till that changes. And potentially Travis might be able to start dropping her off, so I'll clearly notice that on my door as things change. And that's all I have.
And does the town own those dog waste stations?
I may have referred to Chauncey. My understanding is that RTA put it up with no real MOU on who's supposed to maintain it. I get calls about it, so I take we call the bumpy car, the golf cart up there and empty it. I usually am, this time of year, it's not usually as used as it was this winter, seeing as everybody could go up there. I try to empty it actually fairly often as I can, so we maintain it. It's unclear who's supposed to, but we're the ones who get the calls.
I think it's great, and I wonder if the town would be interested in putting one more up, and that would be at the Van Winkle head frame.
I know we have one at the park, and I know we have one more to install down at the pavilion. I don't know about any others. To install, just,
Yeah, we can look into it. We probably should spend some time this spring, kind of for summer, assessing current conditions, because I've heard from some other neighborhood areas on kind of integral access points, one being the bottom of Water Tank Road, there might be a need for it. It hasn't been a high priority, but we're coming into having some capacity to manage it a little bit better, and we do have some upcoming interviews with some potential park employees who are interested in the job who can help out as well. So I think now is the opportune time to evaluate these areas.
You think we could pay for it with dog license fees?
Thinking about it.
They probably come out in the wash, the $100 for the bag and the station is probably not the labor burden, but
Yeah.
All right, great. Does that answer your question, Gary?
It does, thank you.
what else you got? So that was it for Anna, right? And we're on with Chauncey. Chauncey's talking, I think he's doing his thing.
All right, I don't have too much. I did submit our CDS request for the reactant of Silver Creek to Hickenlooper and Bennett. Haven't had a couple follow-up calls with their staffers, haven't heard much yet on what's, I imagine it'll get moved forward to the appropriation committees. The question will be, will it come out the other side into the budget? More to come forward as time moves on that one. Additionally, I know the board's aware, but I'll just say it in the public. The judge decreed water rights to continue moving forward for another 6 years on conditional and absolute rights for Silver Creek. We should be getting some proposals for the intake and treatment components of Silver Creek. I think at that point too, when we get into the design phase, into the 30% design phase, the town should really have a pretty good understanding. The board should have a pretty serious conversation about what water rights look like, and how much money the community or utility should spend to access some of these absolute rights. A 2.73 CFS is like a couple MGDs a day or something like that. I might be high on that number, but I think town at peak build outs forecasted to be 150,000 gallons a day, and not including fire flow. So, maybe a half MGD, which is definitely much smaller than 2.73 CFS. So more to come on that, but just start something that the trustees should start thinking about as these projects start to move forward. Supposedly the radar sign, I know that's been a thing of interest. Supposedly the radar sign, they had tried to order parts, the sign's now obsolete. From speaking with CDOT, it sounds like the state highway might just be installing 2 radar signs for the town, at no expense, placing them on north and southbound at the extent of town. If you're out there, you'll see some holes they dug that have some plate steel over them right now to protect them. So more to come. I heard that from some local employees of CDOT. Haven't heard that from the Durango office, but it seems like we'll have the signs, the new signs that meet the state specs are the signs the sign you see when you come down the hill into Dolores, just to help people visualize what that'll look like. So we had already mentioned, but I'll reiterate that town cleanup will be moving forward on May 9th. And then I was hopeful that we would have 30% sewer design discussion. I've been traveling and taking tours of tons of different MBR plants and different wastewater utilities in the area and reviewing lift stations and components. And at this time, 30% design for collection is complete. We'll be doing a walkthrough. I'll be doing a walkthrough with the engineering team the last week of April. But there's a couple other manufacturers in this pre-selection process for the treatment plant that I'd like to go see with the engineers out in Denver, which will happen at the tail end. I'll get back from my trip in May, stay a day or two and do some site tours of that. So pre-selection for the plant hasn't completely happened. So 30% design being presented to the board will probably be sometime middle to end of May. And I think that is all I have. Yes, that is all I have this evening.
Do we need to confirm our attendance for CML?
Oh, that's the last thing. Sorry, that was the other thing I wanted to bring up. I am just juggling too many different notes and working on a small laptop screen. CML, we'd like to make reservations for everyone. So please, by a week from today, the 22nd, please let me know if your intent is to attend. And if you choose not to attend, if I don't hear from you, we just won't book accommodations and your pass for the conference. You can at this point see all of the sessions that'll be available, see if it sparks your interest. I think it's a great experience, especially for the electeds to go to it. We do have money in the budget. I think it's in Loveland this year at the Westin. So just get a hold of me, phone call, text, email, and let me know. And myself and Anna will work on that next Thursday.
But let's see if we can take care of some of that now. Does anybody here certain they will not be attending. Garish, you're a maybe?
I'm a maybe.
I will for sure be attending.
All right, so you have Crystal and I certain, Garish, or maybe you should hear from them by when?
A week from today.
Okay?
I have a question for you, Chauncey. What's the status of the removal of those two old fuel tanks that are down in our new recreation area by the
Those
town?
Those have been pulled, and then we're going to spend some time in May. We need to do a cleanup of the little drop retention pond there, so we get that trail to tie in neater. And then we have a bench we plan to put down there, concrete in, a park sign. We need to pour a couple small slabs to mount the bear-proof trash bins, and then the volleyball net. So May is going to kind of be the button up of all of that space, but that's all been tidied up now, so they're no longer down there.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh.
I have a question. Or two questions. On the speed radar signs,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. That's an awesome update. Now, do we take down the old one that doesn't work, or do they?
CDOT will remove the old one.
They'll remove the old one? Okay. Well, my other question was on the sewage treatment plant subject. I met this nice fella from Bohannon, Houston, who came down from Grand Junction and was,
Toby.
yeah, what was his name?
Toby.
Kobe. Yeah, I think he said you went down to Port or Durango to look at the stations together a little bit.
Yep.
How did
Yeah,
that go? How did all that go?
It's all been really beneficial, I think, for the people who are in this wastewater engineering realm. Everyone has a preference similar to maybe a car manufacturer. So it's nice to hear and speak with. I think at this point I've spoken maybe with 20 different ORCs of 20 different wastewater collection systems and treatment plants, and everyone has a little bit different of an opinion. But I've been really trying to garner from these folks and work with Toby's the engineer on the collection side, and then we have Boris and Eric on the treatment plant design side. But what we're really trying to garner from them is longevity of parts and companies, manufacturers, because they'll all tell you have the best product, and operational costs, trying to make decisions that is if and when the sewer system comes online, it's something that we can add into our day-to-day and maybe bring on an additional employee instead of bringing on this system that has a lot of nuances and O&M, weekly maintenance requirements and things like that could have potentially create a reduction in service in the other departments we have. So that's been the really fascinating part. Durango is a great example. They have 17 lift stations, and out of the 17, they have three completely different style of lift stations, submersibles, some that have dry wells with the pumps below the sewage, so they're gravity fed, and then a lot of what's popular are ones above that have a vacuum kind of way to be able to bring suction or prime to them. So just that's been really beneficial, because what we end up going with, we have to live with and operate with and understand the ins and outs, and then also the O&M side of it when we're also juggling a water utility and the roads.
Yeah, it's probably too early on in the whole project, but do you have any idea how many lift stations would be needed to do for RICO?
Yeah, we're expecting to have three, I believe at this point in time, 3 lift stations with the current collection system design. I think that might slightly change on the walkthrough. So Toby's kind of been the project manager on the collection side. He has 2 other engineers working with him. They'll all be down, and we're going to walk all the alignments, I think, in a couple Fridays from now, I want to say, and just confirm everything. There's a fine line. There's a fine line for all of this, right? I think lift stations have a burden to them, and no one really likes to work in sewage. They obviously have issues. They need maintenance, but also the ability to put a sewer collection line 30 or 40 feet down in the ground with the geotech they've done, and knowing the town operates with a rubber backhoe versus a track hoe, and kind of what the constraints are. So been trying to walk this fine line of collection line depths that'll capture all the houses and limit the need for lift stations, but not putting collection lines so deep that we're benching out a road 40 feet wide to get to a sewer main. So three's the number we're looking at right now. With that said, there may be a couple houses, depending upon where their septic pipe comes out, or one-off small neighborhoods where the house would have an on-site like E1 pump situation, which I know some people may not be thrilled about that. It's like a 5-watt light bulb running. It's not a huge cost, but there's some maintenance requirements from the property owner when those get installed, but just not reasonable to put a lift station in to collect 2 houses in a residential neighborhood that we know is completely built out. That may change. And then of course, it's pretty common practice to have a lift station that puts it into the headworks of the building, into the treatment side. So there'll be something on site as well. But I think right now we're forecasting 3 lift stations within the residential neighborhoods.
Thank you. Okay.
Answer your question.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
Any more on the manager's report?
That was it. So,
Not from Chauncey, not from the board, not from our town staff? No? All right, thank you, Chauncey.
Of course.
Next up, discussion items. First on the list is voluntary cleanup update and discussion regarding the discolored road segments and town position. We've been talking about this for a while, but I know we just got a letter. April 15th, and we got a response from correspondence in December. I've been able to read the letter, but haven't had time to really think about it. I don't know if that really concerns what we're trying to accomplish here tonight. Chauncey, is there anything you need to update us on that you
No.
haven't already? If not in the letter?
The letter came out. I had a call with Mike this morning about the letter. I did invite him to the meeting tonight. He had a prior conflict, and then with receiving the letter, I think Tom is going to hop on just to be able to capture the board sentiment. We'll be speaking with Adam and their crew, but essentially, I think everyone hopefully has had time to look at it. I know there's some printed copies there. Essentially, their thoughts are that the number of sample results that they did and the sampling methodology. I think they said there were 3 notice sites, 1 at the action level and then 3 above, those 3 being on soda. It sounds from the conversations I had this morning that they don't think this to be that major of a concern and a pretty low risk for residents in the town with what they believe to be less exposure than people in residential yards. And they had also flagged that the action level in the historic agreement, which had changed, had a road level which was significantly larger or higher than the action level in residential yards. They feel like this number still is low, that they have some best management practices. They're not certain, they didn't provide what these would be. It sounds like they have some stopgap measures for, moving into the near term on contractors that they could get out here to clean up these couple areas so the exposure is reduced. But they didn't, and potentially some long-term like O&M maintenance with steps and incremental cost reimbursement if these issues do arise, but we haven't seen any of those materials yet.
Hey, Chauncey, the letter said that they would have a plan for these temporary things by the end of April. So, or maybe that was in the email, not in the letter. The email to you. So, I mean, I assume they're gonna have a plan to fix these things. And by the time we're meeting next month, they will be under construction, working on them.
I think that's the hope. I know they tasked Anderson Engineering to work on these plans, and then they have contractors on site at the St. Louis who I believe could pivot and implement them. But I don't know for certain what that looks like. They hadn't, in our phone call, hadn't really committed to what that response looks like once it starts moving forward and access and those type of things.
Would be good if it wasn't a hope and they're actually working on it when we meet in May.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
assume they are. I don't know because I haven't met with the Anderson crew to discuss this. I only had time to meet with Mike this morning.
That's all I got.
I mean, that kind of reminds me of the old saying, fool me once, but. It's easy. Months go by and it keeps going away. It's been happening for a long time. I mean, I'd like this conversation to keep going. Irrelevant to the letter, a plan to make a plan, that's great, but I'd like to give Chauncey something to take to them that is what the board says. And if the plan they come back with accommodates what we said, great. If not, then we start working on that, but I think in the packet, under the potential pathways to resolve the issue, and we're not talking about a couple spots is what they're talking about as well. We know there's a problem on all our streets. To say the bioavailability is not a concern on the streets is not accurate, given the way of life of everybody in this town. We're pedestrians, we're on foot, we're on bicycles, our kids are in baby strollers, our dogs are up and down the dirt streets. We live on dirt streets, the door open, the dust come in, the dog puts it on your bed. We know it's a problem. We know this, there's no question about it. We've been proven that the testing method was not adequate. We look at historic data and it shows at 1,700 parts per million, a lot more road segments that were subject then that suddenly disappeared. We've been told that sometimes time goes by and the problem takes care of itself. I don't buy it, personally. I think, the staff recommendations for using historic data to include the additional roadways, potholing if necessary, including town staff, not coming in and doing it and say, oh, we did it, it's consistent with the other one, it's fine. Our town staff knows where the problems are, we could show them, test here. And I would also like it to include dates that get respected, not 4 months to a simple question. Building season's going by fast, right? When we agreed on this years ago, we agreed the town streets were probably the most important thing. Everybody agreed that. We want to get that done, we want to get it done first. Well, we ended up in a position where in order to get that done, first of all, there's hardly any segments that need done, so it doesn't seem like a problem anymore anyway. For the storm drain, town's responsible for getting funding for all the segments that aren't getting done. Now, last year went by and we simply said, well, there was no funding opportunities this year. Is there funding opportunities this year? If there was, when is that gonna come up? When are we gonna be able to implement it? We're talking knowingly, sitting here, knowingly saying, we're willing to keep pushing this down the road however long. When the fact of the matter is, most of the roads are contaminated, they need done. According to the agreement, ARCO can pay for the road remediation, pay for the storm drain, and can start immediately. We know it's a problem. That's what I would like to see. And it's simply worded in our packet. We can send Chauncey that information. He can bring it to them. 10 days prior to the next meeting, we get a yes or no answer. If they want to provide a plan that they have plans to make, that's fine. But if it doesn't cover our requests, then we'll go from there. Otherwise, we have the option to not deal with it and simply say, we have no regards for public health. It's everybody else's problem. Go ahead, did you buyer beware? That's fine. You bought a house on a contaminated street, your kids are breathing it, you're eating it. We don't care. That could be our other stance and just let it go the way it is.
My sense is that the storm drain system, once it's installed and active, is going to do a lot to keep overland flow off of our streets. And if resurfacing is part of the storm drain system for the parts that are going to be worked on, I think it's a legit plan. I understand what you're saying about, streets that. Their sampling didn't indicate were above the action level. Pat, I don't know how to resolve that. Their sampling protocol was approved by the state. And I don't have the expertise in this area to say who's right or who's wrong about it. Even though we have historical data from samples that were taken from deeper than the 2-inch samples that when they were doing the sampling last year. So I don't have the same concerns that you do about it because the state has bought off on their sampling plan. And I don't have the expertise to say that they're wrong.
Dave, do you think that disturbance of the road on a regular daily use basis, whether it's a tire spinning or a bicycle skidding or erosion from the rain, like we saw here, is not gonna continue to bring up what's below the top 0 inch?
Well,
And how do you explain the historic data that showed it was all there? We were in agreement years ago.
they sampled different depths.
Yeah, they sampled at depth, not off the surface, but. Regardless, like I said, we're certainly welcome to kick it down the road and say we don't want to.
I'd like to see this project move forward as quickly as is feasible.
You realize that it can't move forward until town secures the funding for the stormwater. System, they're not gonna do any of the roads until we can do, town pays for the rest. What's the balance on the stormwater, Chauncey?
The balance on the stormwater, I think the project's 4 million, and I think ARCO has 2 to 3 million of that funded between road and stormwater. So let's say $1 million. Those are really round numbers, but
And what's it look like this year for funding opportunities?
there may be a funding opportunity of EPA monies going into the state of Colorado for stormwater grants, but that notice of funding opportunity hasn't been announced. And then I think most people are aware of the DOLA side. I was just talking with our DOLA rep earlier tonight. It sounds like they're probably gonna have no available money for this upcoming year.
So with that being said, we're certain that there'd be no intent to start road remediation even next year.
Except for the stuff that we talked to them about in December. Like that,
Well,
that's gotta be
they
done
come
immediately.
cover up the young stuff in the ditch here, yeah.
Well, they would still do, so to clarify, they would still, if no funding became available, there would still next year, I think this year we've missed the boat on putting a bid out and getting qualified contractors to actually put in because their scummers are already full. But next year it would be for road remediation that would move forward along with stormwater controls, which on the sheet is depicted as a green and blue. So green would be funded by ARCO. So that's a majority of River, Depot Hill, and then areas up and down gradient of road remediation projects on the eastern side of the town. So although the road segments, as the mayor alluded to, there's not as many and it's a fairly short distance of roads being remediated, there is, I would say, probably about a third of the stormwater controls would be constructed through that. There are, I was speaking with Tom about this earlier, there is in the funding agreement some grant match provided by Atlantic Richfield to go towards the project. I think it's a few $100,000. So what opportunities we have to kind of additional support with those fundings, because there are, and Anderson is working on the flagged 3 spots of interest where they have a stormwater channel moving in and connecting to what would be infrastructure that is contingent upon grant funding, town infrastructure, blue segments in the road and the stormwater channels. So South Silver Street flows into Mance And then I think North Silver Street and Short Street, I want to say flow into Soda Street. And Soda Street is something that, because it was not above the action level until this most recent sampling, would not have stormwater controls. And that was something I flagged to them with concern of channelized flows being then released, so higher velocity, higher intensity in these channels because of the potential gradient in them, and then concentrated flows instead of sheet flows across the road, concentrated flows and channels, then releasing onto town right away, and creating additional erosion or concerns on surfaces where there's no channel to discharge. I was told in the conversation today with Mike that Atlantic Richfield is working on these kind of O&M and best management practices for these sections, but are also tasked to redesign a way to discharge these flows, whether it's continuing stormwater channels or doing drop structures to pipes to discharge in the river. I don't know, or into existing infrastructure in areas that need to be remediated. I'm not certain, but it seems like that's going to be a part that I think will be heavily weighted in what the board decides to do next, because we do know of a couple instances where there's going to be some discharge onto roads causing additional erosion or additional maintenance requirements for the town, where there won't be systems constructed unless there's a dramatic change in the state budget. And some of these roads we know to now be contaminated through the sampling exercise Atlantic Richfield did a couple months prior.
We would assume we will continue to see this forever as we grade roads and such.
I
On an
mean,
annual.
there's a potential, right? That's, the old adage, no good deed goes unpunished. We had roads with channels in them, where the town, with support of Atlantic Richfield, graded these roads, which was a major improvement, applied a tackifier, so we increased the hardness of the surface, reduced the ability for the water to even channel, resulting in sheet flow. Those sheet flows moved to the edges of the right-of-way, found the path of resistance, created their own channels, and in doing so, that increased flow in these areas created erosion at intersections, which is where we most commonly see this contaminated material. So I don't know for certain what it will look like. I did walk all of town when I was reviewing this fairly recently to look at other intersections to see if there was visible contamination or visible mine rock or whatever it may be, however you want to classify. I didn't see any, but I know, as we've discussed in prior meetings, that some of the roads were constructed with mine tailing, some water lines were bedded. So I think anytime we're digging below the first couple inches of the road, there's always a likelihood we encounter contaminated materials. And I think at this point we have an understanding of ways to manage that, and funding reimbursed through incremental cost if it's a water line. It's this question on when we're constructing. I think one of the questions I have that hasn't been resolved in the conversations I've had with Atlantic Richfield is, when we're constructing these stormwater channels outside of what's existing through the funding agreement, say we do come into money or we phase a system, we do have a stormwater fee and it is an enterprise. However, this rolls out over, the next year 1 to 2 to construct, and then another 5 to 10 years to phase projects. I'm not certain what the future looks like, but as we start constructing these channels and putting culverts in, if we find visible mine activity, how does that work? I know that we're entitled to incremental costs, but it's in a project that potentially should have been funded at the onset of this agreement. So I think that there are some really finer details that need to be resolved with Atlantic Richfield. I'm not saying who should do what at this time. I just have some uncertainty about a piecemealed approach and what that may look like.
So Chelsea, are you suggesting that the agreement be modified so that as the stormwater system is put in, if contaminated soils, there'll be a sampling of soils that are removed or moved around for ditches and culvert placements and that sort of thing, that the sampling continue and AR agrees to replace those contaminated soils, take the contaminated soils to the repository and replace those soils as they're exposed during construction?
Well, at least in my understanding of this program, is that that would be covered because those would be related to the incremental costs at hand. My question more so is, or a thing for the board would be, if we're doing these projects and are noticing this and making these improvements to reduce these pop-up one-off situations that maybe aren't so one-off, I don't know for certain, but if we're doing this work, I'm saying, is there an above and beyond? Is there a determination on cost of linear? I know there's a determination on cost of linear foot for these improvements. If we start getting into these instances where we're constructing stormwater channels and we find it XRF, and we have someone in the field and we find that whole channel way to be contaminated, is there another reimbursement above and beyond incremental cost for the town to recoup additional funding based upon linear feet of what the estimated construction cost would be of the stormwater channel? So it's not as ideal as they come and do all of the segments based on historic data. I think that would be kind of the blue sky. If people, they would agree to that, we would be no longer having these conversations. But if there's a concession on either side or a concession on the town side, is maybe the next best thing is trying to figure out how we can work with them to guarantee that as contaminated materials become available, there's money outside of the ICs that could help offset the cost of construction. If we start seeing visible contamination along the right of way of Commercial Street or whatever road it may be, to the point where we as the town staff bring it to the board and the board makes the decision to allocate resources to construct stormwater controls to reduce these contaminants becoming visible, do we have a way to go to Atlantic Richfield and say, hey, we're doing this section now, it was outside of the VCUP, but we expect and appreciate the monies coming back for the cost of this project because this isn't an isolated intersection, it's a known issue on a section of right of way that previously tested below. I'm just trying to think of, from the town's perspective, what are some potential holistic approaches, knowing that from the conversations I've had with Mike, of course, we would like to see all the previous state sampling data used in the roads remediated to that standard. I'm not certain that's something that is going to happen. And if this board collectively wants to see this agreement stay and this program stay implemented in place, I would just been trying to think of other opportunities that the town can present to Atlantic Richfield so we can find some common ground to keep this implemented, keep it going, and also address these issues without the town coming out of pocket and only being reimbursed for the trucking costs and the material going into the ditch.
So let's just say one scenario, let's say we pulled the trigger on the streets in the storm drain today. The road segments that weren't being remediated are getting storm drained. Now, in order to make the water go to where we need it to go, we start grading roads. Now, surely, or in almost all of that, we're gonna be taking off the top 0 to 2 inches tentatively, but possibly whatever, it's gonna happen a lot. So when we take that off, especially on the road segments that we know historically below the 0 or 2 inches, we know it's there, right? It's tested before, it's just not on the surface now. So we remove the surface and realize that the whole road is contaminated, that's on town. Now, they'll take the soil, but we're gonna have to take a foot out and replace it out of our pocket on those segments as we go. Is that?
That's not that's not what I guess that's not what I'm portraying or trying to put forth. I think that the road segments, yeah, if we're doing major work that requires grading and crowning and reshaping of roads, and we know we're getting below those 0 to 2 inches, I mean, I think that the town has every right to have a soil management contractor on site or someone from Tri-Hydro testing in real time, figuring out concentrations. And if it's above, I think that there needs to be certain things discussed and in place with Atlantic Richfield on what those next steps are. I don't think it should be the town's responsibility. This whole agreement was to be able to clean up town to a higher safety standard, not at the burden or expense of the community, but at the expense of Atlantic Richfield. I'm just not certain from the conversations I've had recently with their crew, that they're going to concede to doing all of the red segments. So I'm just trying to portray some options that maybe are worthwhile to present back to Atlantic Richfield. And one was the storm waters, and if we see it, I think to your point, Mayor, if we start grading and are noticing things or requesting on-site sampling, we did fill our soil management contractor position, so we have a town rep being paid by the town to help in these instances. If we start noticing additional contamination in these areas, I think it would be easier to address that now before we run into those problems through this negotiation process with Atlantic Richfield when we come back to them with a proposed solution for the current discolored segments and the next steps if we see it wholesale on larger sections of right of way or in channels that we're constructing in the future for stormwater.
So I agree, my point being that as soon as we start with the road resurfacing on our own end, we're gonna discover what we already know is there, we know we are. So why not take care of it now?
I mean, if that was an opportunity, we would probably be working on the roads currently or getting ready to go out to construct it. I'm not sure that's an opportunity, and I think, at least from the conversations I've had and trying to get a good gauge on, the town board side along with the Atlantic Richfield side, I think that this might be the time that we can put those protections in place for the town. So when these matters arise, there's already a framework to address them and we're not having these back and forth. So maybe they're not willing to do all of the red segments of the road from the historic sampling on that past figure that's in the packet, but maybe there's some stopgap measures in place that if this arises again, the town can default to them without having to come back to Atlantic Richfield and renegotiate the agreement year over year as these things arise. I think this could be a good time to present alternatives that may be less of an aggressive ask than what was historically. I think we start with that ask always. I mean, it is a negotiation, but then have some of these other things in our back pocket that are available to us. So that way, if we do have a huge runoff event, we're seeing yellow and orange discolored soil, we send our soil management contractor out to conduct some testing. We get those results back, we can flag these road segments and say, hey, this in the revised agreement or in this revised O&M maintenance you've provided, these are the next steps and we're going to take advantage of that opportunity. I just want to make sure the solution that the board and Atlantic Richfield, they can come to agreements on this matter is something that we're not having to go back to the table again and again. So that's kind of the lens I'm looking at it through right now. I understand that all of our roads are contaminated. I know if you dig within the first 6 to 12 inches, or if you get close to a water line, there's probably very high concentrations in certain areas. Just speaking to some of the people here when improvements were constructed that have some institutional knowledge, I know that this issue is going to continually arise. I think if we could take care of it wholesale at the onset, of course, that would be ideal for everyone. If that's not an opportunity, what can we do to protect the town and not have to have these conversations? I think they've taken a lot of time and resources away from other pressing things from a staff level. And I think the board as well has other things they'd like to be more attentive to if we had some framework in place to move forward on these type of matters.
I guess my concern is that we're not gonna know about these instances until the years go by, you secure the stormwater funding and actually put everything into motion. And then start having to stop what we're doing as we start the storm drains. Well, now this whole road needs remediated.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
understand that.
But I think if it gets taken care of, it's better than just giving up on the whole agreement or plan.
I'm not saying give up, I'm saying we should try to take care of it now. We have an agreement.
that's the hope.
Stick with it, so.
Yeah, and
I
I think, and Mayor, I think that should be the ask. I think if something comes out of tonight's conversation, we've looked at the letter, this is still the ask from the town. We're awaiting your response for these materials that you alluded to in your email being ready for our May meeting, and then we can have a deeper conversation at that point.
And it would be much appreciated if we had timely responses.
I wonder what, Tom, you've been involved in all of these negotiations with AR. What do you think their response is going to be if we come back at this point and say we would like to cover these issues that are likely to arise in the future that are not covered specifically in the agreement at this time?
Thank you, and thanks for allowing me to participate tonight. Yeah, it depends, I think, on what the ask is, as well as what some of the options are. And I think we obviously are not getting everything we want in the letter that they sent back, but I think it does represent a way for us to have discussions with them. Obviously this program overall is going to be significantly reducing the risks in the town for lead exposure. And, if we end up not having this agreement be implemented and EPA is coming in, they've indicated, as I understand it, the roads aren't really going to be a priority. So it's a priority for the town. This is a way for us to get, progress on this issue. I think in terms of your question, I think having a mechanism in place to deal with issues as they arise is in a way what AR has proposed. But I think we want to make sure that it's very clear what we're going to be able to do in the future when these issues arise. So, that's sort of how they proposed it in a way is, we'll do best management practices. We'll provide funding so you can implement those best management practices. So it is an additional give on their part. But I think, we should be thinking about ways to get the kind of funding that, Chauncey was talking about so that as issues arise, if we are going to be doing and I do think generally when we're doing excavations and we're hauling soil, that's contaminated, and replacing it, those are the kind of costs that are already contemplated in this agreement. So that piece shouldn't be that big of an ask. So I think it's definitely worth engaging with them on these discussions and trying to do what we can to deal with this issue that arose and figuring out a solution that works for both parties going forward.
I mean, delays are frustrating, but if we can get something out of these discussions, I think in the long term.
I understand, we're getting more discussion, in my opinion. In order for it to start, there's a lot of things that gotta happen that aren't happening. And once it happens, then we're gonna be going back to the drawing board, if any of that makes sense. And they're not gonna start the roads until we get the storm drain, which is a year behind, and we agree on that. And we get the funding, and then we're talking about years down the road. And as we start into it, and we say, well, this is the problem, will you fund this, will you fund that? I mean, in my opinion, it'd be much better to have something in place now, but like I said, if you wanna kick it down the road, in my opinion, it is absolute disregard for public health. That's fine. I spent a lot of time on this. I don't need to spend any more, but
So, my understanding was that the roads, the red roads that show up, that they say that they're going to do the lead abatement on, that they would do the storm drainage on those roads, that segments. Am I wrong about that?
On the few segments that they say tested higher than the actual level at the surface, they will remediate the road and provide storm drain for that road. They've also paid for the engineering on the storm drain for the entire town, which was a great,
Yeah,
benefit
I
to us.
can- I'm gonna pull up just so you all can see and have a reference. I don't know how visible it'll be, but I'll pull up the map of what they will fund or what will be constructed that the town won't be responsible.
And you compare it to the maps from 2004 or whatever it was.
Or this is just storm drain.
This is just from current storm drains. Is that coming through for everybody?
Not yet,
Storm-
just double click to enter full screen.
Yeah, but it's in like.
There we go,
different
it's on there now.
Just let my internet's a little slow. So you can see all of the green sections. So if we look up towards Mill, we have Mill Road running down to a discharge, Van Winkle tying into a culvert, which then ties into Garfield Extension going to the discharge. We have this section of Garfield and Silver Street in question because that's being discharged onto Soda. Blue stands for sections that won't see a stormwater constructed unless it's funded by grant. Then we have Silver Street discharging back into Silver Creek on both sides of it. South Silver is a section of concern because that runs into a channel and discharges onto Mance. So that area, along with North Silver to Soda, they're looking at re-engineering. And then we have Commercial Street, Argentine Alley, all tying into a Glasgow CDOT area. And then when we look over at the western side of town, we see Argentine and Hancock. Oh no, Argentine and River Street and what would be West Soda, all seeing stormwater to a discharge being constructed through this agreement, along with River Street, Mance going down Depot Hill to Picker to a discharge in Hancock. The areas in blue are the next priority areas. I think we need to come to some sort of resolution on the Silver Street, South Silver to Mance and Soda. The teal sections are third priority, and then you'll see the three pink sections being Piedmont, Silver Glance, and West Rico, Eder, Picker. Those are hydrologically separate from this whole system, so those are the fourth tier funded. So you can see with the green segments, if we look at the core of town, we're probably approximately a third, if not a little greater than a third of the stormwater controls being constructed. The really areas of pause right now are going to be Mance and Soda Street, knowing there'll be constructed channels discharging the sheet flow in those areas. So hopefully this gives a little context. You can also see, and it's probably a little hard to tell with the screen and the distance you guys have away, but there's some gray or brown hatch marks. Those brown hatch marks are remediation areas.
But what have they agreed to do? Just a high priority, or what have they agreed to?
Any section depicted in green, and then all of the hatched areas for road remediation. Those are funded through the VCUP agreement. And then there's additional funding that the town, if we were fortunate to receive a grant, could be used as match towards that project. So some of the questions I've had or been thinking of recently is there a way to release that additional grant funding? It seems like there's some shortfalls on what they're willing to fund or not fund. So how can we tie the Silver Street stormwater controls into Soda Street and have Atlantic Richfield pay for those improvements to a discharge? Equally so, how do we tie South Silver into Mance and have them continue that to the CDOT storm drain system? I think if those two areas could be constructed to a discharge, that would be a step in the right direction. Just that seems to be one of the glaring issues on the design. So hopefully that gives some context on what would be constructed or what was hopefully supposed to start this year and will move off to next year. I think once there's a resolve to this matter at hand, if it grows the scope, the scope stays similar, I'm not certain how that will all go. But either way, there's no doubt in my mind we'll be positioned to start road remediation and stormwater controls for next construction season, because some of these areas, Mill Road and Van Winkle, there are no other, so I guess you would say micro watersheds that tie into these areas from other streets that would affect it. So there's no reason why some of those items can't be constructed.
Just to clarify, what have they agreed, what part of the storm drainage system have they agreed to do?
All of the green sections depicted on the image, if you can see.
All the green section.
Yep. So if I can zoom in just to help give some context, you can see
Yeah,
any section in green.
Okay.
So Mill Road coming down, is that a little better? Do you need me to zoom in more?
No, that's great.
Mill Road coming down, this Silver Street, a portion of Garfield. Then we get over to here, pretty much all of Silver Street, Commercial, Argentine tying into existing infrastructure. And then when we move over to the west side of town, we see Argentine, River, Soda, and then going into Hancock through the railroad grade down Depot Hill into Picker Street. So these are all the areas that would be funded. Then you can see there's dark blue areas, which are the next priority in terms of making a comprehensive stormwater system. And then there's some other areas that aren't connected to these channels either, or have very limited flows. So one example being North Commercial Street, where the courthouse is right here. If there was a channel conveying water from Silver Street down, the only flow that would be captured on this section of Commercial Street would be the flow in front of these 3 houses in the courthouse discharging to the river, and likewise the alley down Argentine on Main Street. So the teal areas are kind of the lowest priority of the core of town.
And they prioritize these road segments based on sampling, or
These
they
they prioritize the blue and the teal based upon flows. So they did hydraulic modeling for the town, in areas where there's flow and steep gradient, were areas where they said, you know, if the town receives grant funding, these would be the most important to reduce long-term road maintenance, to help convey water and move it in a manner to keep the right-of-ways in better shape. The teal areas see less flow, less gradient, so those are a lesser priority in that sense. They're not related to contamination, because everything that's contaminated, will see stormwater controls constructed by Atlantic Richfield up and down gradient, as you see, except for Silver Street down gradient. There's not really anything continuing out of this location right here.
So looking at Soda Street, it looks like it's got 2 colors on it. What's up with that?
Yeah, so that's because Garfield Street would tie into Soda Street, and so would that Garfield Alley area, and that's a very steep area with increased velocity and additional watershed contributing to it, with those 2 laterals off of Soda Street. When you move to the south side of Soda Street, where it's depicted in that more of a teal color, a lighter blue color, Silver Street here, I can zoom in. You can see this section of Silver Street actually discharges towards Silver Creek. So the only flow that we would be capturing on this section of Soda will originate at where those stormwater controls are being constructed. So it's less gradient, less flow in those areas.
I think, I guess when it comes back to what we want to request, obviously, the number 1 high in the sky would be to go back to the old set of sampling data, which according to this figure, Pat, is still 0 to 2 inches was the sampling. This was not sampled at other depths, and this is still the map that we have
Results were largely different.
compared to this. No, I know, you were just talking about other depths, and I just wanted to make sure we all knew that these 2 maps were both 0 to 2 inches, which I find more compelling, actually. I wonder if the second tier of request, if that is definitely not a possibility, would be for them to reconsider funding and implementing the construction of the like darker blue sections. Because that, to me, would bridge some of that gap between the sections that they're not going to remediate now and where we're seeing problems, and what would essentially delay this project in a major way. And then I think the third level, I guess, the third tier of requests would be what you were talking about funding, you know, if we encounter waste, and how that would happen without us having to go back and forth every time. There would just be a system in place. So I think in my mind, those would be the 3 priorities in, I guess, in order of how much we want to concede.
Yeah, I mean, I think that falls right along with staff's recommendations, which is,
How does that sit with you, Pat?
that's fine. You know, I mean, I think that if we, basically, we're following what staff had prepared for us. Right, Crystal, am I mistaken?
No, I can go back to it.
It looks pretty darn close.
Here we
We'll
go.
revise the road mitigation map using historic data and current data to include additional roadway areas showing evidence of buried mineways. And as well, conduct potholing through the town's rights of ways to verify that phase one sampling is representative of the conditions of the entire 0 to 12 inch zone. You know, he's saying we only need to keep doing the top 2 inches in the same spot when probably waste of time, because we know we're not gonna find anything there. And then buried mine waste is encountered. XRF analysis can determine whether action levels are exceeded. Both actions would ensure that VCUP construction activities are protective of public health and prevent unexpected exposure and costs during excavation. And would also, we would include that, given the current plans and RFP based on incomplete, potentially inaccurate assumptions on which road segments require remediation, staff recommends that the board direct the RFP not to be released until we resolve the matter, which seems like we're gonna have in the beginning of May. And design documents are updated appropriately. Short delay now will prevent significant public health risks and major costs to speed later.
I agree with that. I think we have to figure some stuff out before we go down that road.
Which road?
Oh, releasing the RFP.
Right, that's what I said, we're not
Yeah.
agreeing to the RFP
Right.
until we can resolve somebody's issue.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
basically, staff has put it into a couple very nice paragraphs. I'm in 100% agreement for that. If we can send Chauncey to reiterate those paragraphs, I'm completely fine with that.
Likewise.
Likewise.
All right.
Yeah, everybody okay with that?
So just,
Anna, how do you vote? I'm sorry,
May I just-
Chauncey, go.
oh, Mr. Mayor, may I just clarify? So we want to just, at this point, respond back with what those recommendations from that memo, from previous meeting, and then ask them, when do we want the response? And then also additionally, I think right, we're expecting materials coming out at the end of April for what they're proposing for kind of O&M and next steps for boots on the ground for this season. So we'd like a response to that and those materials in advance of the meeting. And then from there, I think at the May meeting, the board can discuss more in depth on other possible avenues forward, dependent upon their response. Is that just to clarify? Just making sure I'm tracking correctly.
I think that's great. I mean, and I know we understand that things take time, but if we're told beginning of May, we expect the beginning of May. If it's gonna take till July, simply tell us July. And I would like a response to these questions we're asking in time to get it into the packet the 10 days prior to our next regular meeting, which should, I believe, be the 10th of April. Whatever it takes to get it
In the public
the
record in the packet. Yep.
packet on time, not at 7 o'clock, or, 5 to 7, I walk in, I got the letter for the day, so that doesn't work.
No, agreed. I figured with the importance of this conversation and that letter coming out this, I think it was like 9:30 when I received it. It was important to get it included in tonight's discussion.
We need to at least feel like they're pretending to take us serious.
Okay, I can.
All right, are you good? Everybody get that?
Vote on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can relay those message and then we will
Public comment?
address this.
We got a public comment.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. All the day, we got all night.
That's right. Got all night.
No, we're not.
There you go.
3 minutes now.
3 o'clock. Let's go.
I agree with where you guys are going on this. I think it deserves a lot of criticism and a little bit more careful attention to detail. I think there should be a caveat towards some of these B cups that are inside our municipality and how they're adjacent to our streets and whether or not they may or may not mitigate contamination onto even a street that may be deemed clean. I mean, we don't have a lot of institutional control over what's going on in these properties, since they're privately owned. And being though, I mean, I could look at some of this, drawings that Chauncey's got and see that some of these streets that they're not wanting to clean up obviously parallel special V Cup properties that are outside of our jurisdictional control. So, I mean, I'd use the Van Winkle straight off. How are we gonna look at a hillside of rock that we know is contaminated, that's uphill, adjacent from our roadways, and try and let them off the hook from putting a collections, ditch in there. Secondly, I'd like to say that in regard to these so-called cleaner areas, with the sampling depths that we know have been, 0 to 2 inches. Obviously, we're gonna need a channel that's deeper than 0 to 2 inches to contain and mitigate, stormwater. Why are we not getting testing in those areas? Isn't it their burden of proof to tell us these areas are clean at a depth that is going to be necessary for water to be channeled down these areas? Period, and I look at this a little bit harder, and if I look at these plans as a staffing level, I would come up with more questions. I'm happy to readdress some of this stuff and see where I feel like there may be some problems. Beyond that, it's we look at all the cross stream ditches in this town. I mean, obviously, they're gonna have to get dug out. We're all gonna have to babysit this thing for the rest of time. I think we need to be a little bit more careful about what we get ourselves into, because it's gonna cost us perpetually. The other thing I'd really like to see is testing areas inside these channels to make sure that there's not further contamination mitigating into our waterways, which are considered state water. I don't know how they're getting discharge permits for this stuff in the first place. I don't need to know, but obviously we're talking about contaminated soils, contaminated water. It's all going back into our active waterways. I think that's really odd. I don't really agree with that. I know that the state gets away with some of this stuff and other people may be able to get away with it, but we couldn't as a municipality. We go through discharge permits to do our river crossing and they're rather rigorous. So we're putting bad water back into an active waterway. I can't really stand behind that. Thirdly, or fourthly, whatever, when we did our four CDOT grant and conjunctionary, district core, historic district, revamping of sidewalks and stuff. What did they do? I mean, it was, and I could see this coming like a train in the night in Texas. They dug down like 6 or 8 inches. Most of that material down by the Masonic Lodge was just completely garbage dirt. Where did it go? It never even ended up in the repository. Nobody could step up to the plate and say, we'll take this dirt in a place that's designed to house it. It ended up out there by the Columbia and even further down above the Telski property, which, had housed calcine for a long time when I was a kid. And as far as the state's concerned, Garish, I'll tell you, it took me 5 years to get the state to sample for the calcine on my property. I asked them to do that before I even bought it, because I worked there for 27 years. And it's contaminated. I'm working with contaminated material for 27 years. So the state don't care. And if you're looking at the state for some kind of a standard of health, I think you need to look at it again.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Chauncey, you need anything else from us to head in the direction we're sending you?
It was really productive conversation. I appreciate everyone's time and input on the matter, and I'll follow back up with Atlantic Richfield. I think I have a call with them tomorrow, and I imagine we'll be looking at this at the May meeting as well. So,
Very good.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right, there's no further discussion. We're gonna move on. Special event policy.
It's pretty high. I agree. Seemed fine. Seemed like we had most of that out last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all good and dark and everybody here.
Been consolidated and formatted and
It's a really good format. Good.
ready for the press.
Thank you.
Printing press, that is.
I have no notes on what was presented.
No notes. Done perfectly.
a living document.
We might find out through a special event that we have missed something.
Like, the evolution of every law we've ever passed.
The only question I had was on the number of toilets, 1 to 49 people. Is that a standard that's used in other places, Chauncey?
It's actually only, they actually in most communities require one for that type of number. But after more thought and consideration, I mean, however the board wants to set it up, the reason that I decided to place it as 2 in this metric was more so the fact that if people are coming to town to an event, we want to make sure that event is capturing them in their need to use the facilities, and there's not a trickle out and impacts on our businesses or other companies with OWTS or whatever they may have lurking in the ground. So I just thought maybe a little additional could be beneficial, but if that feels too restrictive to the board, happy to adjust or modify it.
Well, if we had, the way it's written, if we had 3 people in an event, they need to have 2 toilets. It seems a little, let's, seems like a little overkill. 2 toilets for 49 people might be fine. I don't know, I was just wondering if there's a standard that's, other communities use when they're requiring toilets.
I think the providers could probably, provide that.
It would usually be 1. I think the other thing to remember would be up to 49. When someone's putting in for these event permits, the way it's anticipated or presented is that they're getting permitted to the extent of the amount of attendees they're anticipating. So their permit, if it's a special event and they're selling tickets, they could say it's for 30 people, or they could say it's for 200 people. Now, if 3 people show up because it's not a publicized event, we still want to ensure that there's adequate facilities brought in if they reach the upper limits of the permit. So I think the 1 to 49 can be kind of a little off-putting, but I think more so think up to 49 attendance. But like I said, if that's something that the board wants to adjust to 1, we're happy to make that modification to what's presented.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know, I was just asking where that number came from. I don't know. I can go half a day sometimes without using a facility, and sometimes I need to use one every 15 minutes. It kind of depends on my bladder control.
Yeah, and
but-
I will say I also went a little more like liberal on the estimates, because if you're serving alcohol, then the matrix and the numbers skew immensely. If people are drinking on premise, there's more facilities and a higher use rate. So we're trying to bridge the gap and have something that makes sense for kind of what we anticipate for events. I don't know if we made the mark, if we missed it on this, but that may be forthcoming. I think people also have the ability to request modifications if needed through the permitting hearing process.
And can staff discretion perhaps adjust these requirements as appropriate?
Yeah, we just add that caveat to it, and then the board that has the hearing power can make that call out.
I mean, if there's something that staff is not, I think we all trust you guys to say, yeah, I feel like we can make that decision, or no, that's something that needs to go to the board. If somebody says, well, I think there might be 51 people, do I really need 3 toilets? Okay, we really probably get away from.
Yeah, and I think duration really has a huge factor in this. If you're doing a 2-hour event in the park, you probably can use existing facility. I think there's a lot of unforeseen things that we can't be prepared for, but we can give ourselves the grace in these policies to make those decisions as needed.
Yeah, I think staff using discretion to finalize that is fine with each applicant if they would like an adjustment.
Right, so.
Just like you say, you may require additional facilities. I think.
Oh yeah, they're there for 12 hours and it's an Oktoberfest. We're gonna need additional facilities.
Yeah.
Everybody like that? Yep. That level of variance is at their discretion. Based on science and math, not who you do and don't like. Maybe money, if it's slipping you a little something, you could make some good decisions. Just kidding, we don't do that. All right, so we're gonna roll that right into the, if we're good on the, okay, so. That's kind of rolling right into the church.
So what is the next step for the special event policy? Will it be an ordinance or?
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth on this a lot. I know we have the pavilion rental policy ordinance after kind of some further considerations. I think what really makes the most sense is we get, what the board would like to see for these three policies in one place. That way I can review them for inconsistencies between policies on kind of general ideas and concepts. And then they'll be combined into one ordinance, one policy with different sections. So it'll be special event permit, pavilion policy, and church rental policy, kind of living within this use of town-owned properties ordinance. And I think at that point too, I have a draft ordinance that I've worked on. I would like to use, I would like the attorney to review things because I know that they have some best management practices in other communities when I did speak to them about this, that they were advising on just from lived experiences that we don't have yet. So we'll get consolidated, it'll go to the attorney for a quick review and then come back for adoption as a wholesale package for all town-owned facilities that could be rented or utilized in a special event or in a one-off rental situation.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to roll into the church? The same
I got a quick question on that topic though. So in regard to the special use application, especially with the alcohol involvement. We're starting to look at having people like the fire department do some fencing and stuff to sell booze. Obviously, that applies to everybody else that's doing that. How's that gonna be part of this situation? We gonna provide fencing for people, or they gotta do it themselves, and we okay it,
They gotta do it themselves.
and then it gets checked by staff?
Then you see if it's there or not.
Fair enough.
And to just add some more context to this really, we're not at this point in time, the intent of these policies isn't to govern someone having an event or gathering on private property. Some communities do that. We're looking to try to put something in place, since we lack anything that would govern someone coming in and hosting a special event on town-owned property or right-of-ways.
Very good, answer your question.
On the church policy, dealing with firearms. Are we gonna run into problems trying to prohibit firearms from that property? If,
It
not,
Hey, Garish, I think interestingly enough, if you look at those ordinances, you're not allowed to carry a firearm in the town of Rico.
We're gonna get rid of that one.
Yeah.
No,
Also, there was a more recent, I think it was a Senate bill that says you can't carry firearms on any government-owned property.
Just not, just conceal.
if you're obvious about where you're.
I don't know what the status is, but I know in some states,
The 1800s.
we would have a lawsuit if we tried to have this as our policy, because they're so pro.
Okay.
So.
There was a state law a few years ago that made firearms on government properties illegal in the state of Colorado, government-owned properties. And there was a big thing that went out in the manager's listserv about towns who wanted to allow for their residents to carry, and you have to adopt ordinances above and beyond to allow for that. And if your community hasn't, then the state law comes into play, supersedes it. So currently, you can't have a firearm in the town hall, in the town parks, in the church, in the public works building.
Pavilion.
Pavilion, yeah. So I mean, I think if it can stay in the policy, it doesn't.
Yeah, so we go to the firearms. We're clear on that.
I'm not clear on it, but I'm okay with it.
I just, after Garrett's comments on how many head and toilets and whatnot, I noticed that we don't really have an occupancy on the church, do we? Not in this. I mean, there should be fire reasons for toilet reasons, whatever. I mean, we need to set an occupancy limit for the common space?
Yeah, that's something I need to work on. I use, it's same thing for the courthouse room you're all in. We use the National Fire Code, and we look at, since we don't have a fire marshal, we do it internally, but we look at total square footage of the building. There's a calculator available that, based upon what the assembly room is size and what it's being used for and how the doors function, what our options are. So we'll post capacity, and we can make sure that's included in this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be nice to let people know if they're looking the church and the rules and regulations, at least they knew how many people they could put in there, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to work on that next week.
Well, based on the fact that there's one, what do we call it, a cistern for that one bathroom in the church, is there a need, if the numbers would dictate, a need to require porta potties in addition to that?
I mean, there's one cistern here at the courthouse, and that sign on the window says 91 for this room.
Right.
So we could tentatively pack 150 people in, into the same one toilet. So,
Well, in lines with the two porta potties for up to 49 people for the special events policy, I'm wondering if does it make sense that we would let 49 people use the church and only have one toilet? I mean,
I think it
or
would.
two toilets.
Yeah, I mean, given, like I said, given this space, you know, if 93 people pulled in for a meeting at night, we're not gonna run out to put a toilet out front for them, you know, it's gonna be what it is. And again, that could be a staff level discretion, like. How it would happen, but they might say, hey, your event is probably gonna really be demanding on our toilets, and it's probably best if we had a porta john out front. I don't know what event that might be.
I don't either.
You can also make them pump the.
But and I think,
Common sense.
it's dynamic, I think we're gonna learn as we go, I don't think it's worth trying to assume the absolute worst case scenario. I mean, I think we gotta be a little bit flexible and give the staff a little bit of discretion depending on the events. On both these issues. And then we could.
The toilet
worry
room
about the worst, but
occupancy, like you said, to be official, we should have
Animal
a
sacrifice.
known occupancy for a space.
I mean, I think that should be the fire code, like sort of like what we have here, and limit it if we have any other issues.
Obviously, somebody did a very specific measurement in this room to come up with the number 91, not
There's a formula for it.
90 or 100 or whatever. All right, fair enough. What else we got for, the church policy?
Everything I read in the church policy makes absolute sense.
Yeah,
I found item number 5 and item number 3 redundant. An ongoing use, is that just like a consistent ongoing use that happens every day, and then a weekly use is something different? I don't know, I felt like those could be consolidated.
I mean, weekly is very distinctly said by the week, ongoing might be monthly, or it might
So I think ongoing
be
would capture,
daily, it might be, I don't know.
ongoing would capture weekly, so.
Yep, I think it's redundant too.
I also wondered about number 7, the use of balls. Isn't ping pong already happening in there, and doesn't that require the use of balls?
Yeah, and I think the ping pong has been a great use of the space, so I think
Okay.
Yeah.
that's a
Is it-
challenging one. I'll think about, I just presented what was in the report, but I think they're more so meaning like a football or a baseball that'll break a window out, not a very low impact sport like ping pong. So we might just have to rephrase that.
Mom always said, don't play ball in the house. Break her favorite vase, right, Scott? You remember, all right, so we can revise that section.
My next question was about the damage deposit and whether we're gonna require that for ongoing users. So then we just hold a damage deposit for the yoga teacher that happens twice a month. I don't know if that feels appropriate. I think the damage deposit might need to be more specific to certain events.
I think that there are some things that make this policy challenging for some of the people who are using, kind of restrictive for some of the people who are using the space that are local, who are doing community facing functions that charge no money for those, like the yoga we're seeing in there. And I think there's some other concepts that people have been proposing. I'd hate for someone to try to do something that's really community driven with zero cost or donations to help offset the instructor's time and then hold on to $250. So I feel like that needs to be adjusted to affect, same thing like if the RTA or the spoken word folks wanted to use this for a community facing event with no admission, like that just seems really that seems like a large constraint for someone to overcome for the space that's pretty low impact on the use with, we don't have a lot of concerns about people damaging the facilities.
Yeah, I think maybe, I know we talked a lot about the pavilion rental policy and people renting it out for their own events. I think some of those could probably leak into this and create something that is more, I guess, it's just appropriate for the type of event. Yes, I think there are certain events that should have a deposit. But a lot of the things that it's already being used for don't, so I don't know how to draw that line or how exactly to describe the difference between those two, but I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there, a lot of instances should require a deposit. I mean, one option would be to take a check and never deposit it, right? You write a check and you get it back and there's no transactions, there's no log, with the understanding. Gonna give it right back to you at the end of the day, or we just. Yeah, I don't know how something we can do to word that differently to exclude certain activities, certain.
Yeah, I think we can look into the phrasing, and I'll spend a little time looking into the phrasing of the pavilion policy. And I think if it's a community event hosted, by members of the community that's low impact on the space, we should waive the damage deposit. I mean, these people that have been using the facility have been incredibly respectful of it and attentive to the issues that the town's brought forward, which have been very minor and responsive to them. And we haven't had problems. I mean, I don't mean for this to sound weird, but it's like we know where everyone lives, everyone's engaged, we talk through the matters when they come up. It's when someone from a third party comes in from outside of the community where we don't have a good rapport relationship with them, or someone who wants to throw a wedding or something that's more self-serving and private in nature. So I think we have some verbiage in the pavilion ordinance that would work well in this instance.
Card on file would be good, right? We got your number if you.
Yeah, card on file could be a great option for some of these people, so that way we have the ability to process a payment, but we're not holding a deposit, so we're not creating this barrier for someone who wants to do something that has a net benefit for our town.
And that might make it easier on our accounting end if we weren't actually making transactions and refunding transactions. Right, that's all that.
I'm sure Ann is nodding her head on that one.
And I thought, items E and F should be probably, nonprofits should be exempt from that. The community organizations. I don't think we need to be charging nonprofits for their fundraisers.
And use fees?
Where you at?
Yes.
E and F,
Yeah.
under use fees, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Different if someone is like profiting.
I don't want to charge anybody for a community-based sale or, a holiday bazaar, or a fundraising event for certain, would support it.
But if someone wants to use it for some kind of money-making seminar or something like
Right,
that.
if there's a motivational speaker coming in and charging $500 a head, then yeah, they're gonna
We
pay,
can just be a
right?
piece of that.
Thinking about starting that business.
This thing, but nonprofit doesn't mean what you think.
I wouldn't pay more than
Like, the NFL, you get a discount. So somebody, but it could still be a nonprofit, but I think make money. I don't really know how that works, but I know the NFL used to be a nonprofit, so it's like, nonprofit doesn't really mean like what you sort of think it means. Not the net, my mom used to work for a nonprofit, but everyone was paid. I mean, so
You're right. You're absolutely right.
There's a lot of.
There's a whole lot of
it's weird.
of nonprofits that, under the tax code, that
Yeah,
in my mind should not be tax exempt. I'm with you. I'd like to talk about 16.
Well, let's back up a sec. Where are we at with E and F?
So you guys, just to, I think what I'm hearing is our community-based organizations, we want to waive fees. If a nonprofit that's not based within the town of Rico or within the community should have a $75 fee. Is that tracking?
Yeah, if the Red Cross comes here, they gotta pay.
We don't need them anymore, we have our savior here.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to make it as free as possible. Whatever you guys
We
think.
need to give the staff a little bit of leeway for just common sense decisions too, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think there's gonna be expenses incurred as far as cleaning and stuff like that goes. I mean, I think it'd be nice, like if we, just let the staff describe, and somebody say, I wanna do yoga tonight, they're just like, please clean up after yourself, okay? We don't need like a security deposit or something like that. And then, if it's gonna be something bigger, I mean, if for some reason the fire department wanted to do something there for a fundraiser, I think, we are on the hook for any damage done, and we're not going anywhere, you know what I mean? I think but for somebody to say, if I wanted to get married in that church or something, then you should take a significant, especially for me, a very significant deposit, but I think,
10,000.
but honestly, I think we really gotta, we could nitpick this stuff forever and just, what if, I think there's common sense decisions, especially in a small community like this. I think Elijah's yoga there is a wonderful thing for the community. And, sometimes I've driven by and seen people playing ping pong. I think this is just a great thing. And unfortunately, like most laws, whether they be in this town or anywhere else, sometimes they are amended because of unforeseen circumstances, but I don't think we're gonna be able to figure them all out until I think we use our best discretion on things like this. You know what I mean? We are a small town and a tight-knit community. I think we have a lot of that going for us right now.
I think you could find a creative way to reword those fee paragraphs and.
how about like context, like if it's the yoga, then the deposit has to be held in a yoga position.
Might be onto something there.
Upward facing.
Exactly, yeah.
Down doggy.
Do you think you can work on that, Chauncey? Again,
Yeah, I have some ideas. I don't think it's a problem. I think the intent of the purchase of the building and what I'm hearing from the trustees in this meeting and previous ones is if you're doing something for the community that has a benefit for no cost, we really want you to utilize the space. We want to see it vibrant. And then other things, I have some other thoughts on kind of how to navigate. So all good on that.
Yeah, I mean, you could say a fee may be charged. Talk to town staff to see if this applies to you, and then it's done, and then you can figure it out.
Yep.
All right, fair enough. All right. Gary, you had something on top of ENF?
Yeah, under 16, which is, let's see, 25, T26, 16.
Well, that one.
Under use of policy, number 16, parking.
Yeah, the parking. So if we want to restrict parking in front of that building, I think we should put up no parking signs or have a sign that's unloading and unloading only, just to make it clear that so you don't have to be up there to do that. And the accessible AD parking, well, is that envisioned to be in the same location as the loading and unloading? Or would the ADA parking be on the side of this, like on Silver Street?
By the ramp.
Next to the ADA ramp?
Right, there's a ramp.
My recommendation would be to remove all of that. I think we don't have the ability to enforce parking. We don't want to advertise an ADA parking spot since we don't have a concrete parking spot to a concrete landing for a ramp to come out of a van to then go into the building, which may not be ADA compliant in general. I just think common sense prevails in this matter, and people who are using that facility will park as they need to. And we're going to run into an issue if we put up no parking signs with neighborhood people. We allow on-street parking in all of town. I just feel like that might be a unnecessary burden for staff and a hard thing to enforce and navigate. And also potentially open us up to some further conversations that might not be necessary.
I think he's right.
I'm good with taking 16 hours.
Striking 16 in its entirety.
Done.
What else you got? Operating hours, we can tweak that as we go if need be. I mean, obviously, nobody's gonna go over there and throw you out at 9 if you're gonna play ping pong till 9:30, I'd like to think, but. How do we feel about the hours?
There's no warranty in the east.
I mean, if there's accessories considered town permission for it, I guess that covers it.
Yeah.
Contact needed during events in case of facility emergency. Clarify that, we need to contact, who's the contact, town needs contact, and people need to get town contact. I know what you're saying, but it's just not very clear, somebody reading it not knowing.
Yeah, I'm not certain on the intent of that. I mean, like all these things, we'll have an application on file or some sort of paper trail so we have contact information, and then these people will make sure they have a way to get a hold of us if some situation arises. So I'm not sure that needs to really be in there at this point. The policy will trigger the need for these forms and other documents that will be in place, and that's where we can get granular on that type of stuff.
Okay. Well, how's everybody feeling?
Yes.
I look forward to seeing the ordinance with all of the policies in it.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Up in one,
After all these conversations.
so
So can we go back to damage deposit, Chauncey? It
yes,
says that $50 damage deposit would be charged for all users except Rico. And then it says capital B, capital T.
Board of
Board of
Trustees.
Trustees. So the church committee wrote this policy. This is what they presented to us last month. Chauncey didn't write them. He just included the piece that came as a recommendation from the church.
Okay,
So,
I'm not, now I won't ask you the questions, I'll ask the church committee.
and I think through this
Well-
discussion, there's been plenty of input and feedback on how to manage policies and or damage deposits and fee and appropriate policy for that. So so at this point, I'll tweak this. We'll consolidate all these into one kind of document as discussed. Hopefully, I think a realistic timeline would be to have something up for first reading in June and kind of get this moving and behind us by, adopted fully by July, potentially a little further discussion on anything that needs to be clarified in May. If that works for all the trustees.
Works for me.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Public comment on the special event policies, church and otherwise? All right. Next on the agenda is the hybrid meeting option. Darius, this is something you requested, so I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Okay, well, I would like to, for the board to consider changing the policy to allow hybrid Zoom meetings. I think what we want is transparency and participation. And the current policy that is in place only allows certain people to participate by Zoom, and I think we should liberalize that policy and allow people to, allow the citizens to participate by Zoom in order to, get more participation in our meetings. That's a short summary.
Okay, I mean, we've been through this several times, and this is where we ended up.
Well, I thought we only went through it one time when we came up with a ban, we came up with a policy.
We've been through it before, your time on the board as well. If Zoom's come out, we kicked this around.
Right. So there was a citizen who submitted some comments. I don't know if you had a chance to look at those.
Yeah,
Anyway, I think I think there are ways, and other communities have run into the same problems of hackers getting into meetings and kind of messing things up. And there are ways to keep that from happening. And I think we ought to look at liberalizing the policy with some safeguards built into how people can get on Zoom and actually participate with us.
Okay, I mean, I don't feel that our current policy, is certainly not, is non-transparent, right? When we're being televised, everything's published, we are.
Well, transparency works two ways. You can't have a discussion, a one-way discussion with someone who's watching on YouTube.
That's not the intention, the people on YouTube, we don't invite people to virtually join our meetings. You wanna make comments at the meeting, you come to the meeting. Myself, I'm very happy with the situation we have now, and I'm absolutely against bringing back the Zoom, but I'll let the rest of the board share their opinion.
But isn't participation down? I mean, I'm kind of with Garrett, isn't? I don't know, I don't know what's going on the YouTube side, but I sense that since we've shifted over to this, the participation from the community is down.
Well, when it was before there was Zoom, we had a lot more participation, and when people cared about an issue, they made the effort to come here. I think it should, like, Zoom came about by the necessity because of COVID, but I really think that, you know, if you have something that you really need to say, you really should make the effort. I think Zoom has made it very impersonal and very informal, and I think that those of us who have, you know, committed our time to doing this, I understand if you're on vacation, there's ways to YouTube or whatever, but you haven't been through some of these meetings where we have public comment on the thing, and everybody's raising their hands, and it takes a long time to get through.
And I think that's fine. I think that's
Well,
democracy. That's democracy. Yeah, but I'm thinking of Florence.
Yeah, one at a time, we'll get around the table, wait, let everybody speak, and you may speak again.
I'm done.
Scott, I don't know if you were here last month, but this room was packed full of people, so I don't think.
No, I was here last month, it was back.
Right,
So
so I'm not sure that we're discouraging participation. I think participation is based on the agenda. Do you have anything else to say about it?
No, I appreciate him bringing it up, but, and I just understand Benny's point too, I just think, you wanna have a system that's is conducive to making participation. I don't know if easy is the right word, but works with people's lives, you know?
There's a lot of
And
things.
showing up in person doesn't always, it just isn't.
Understood. Randy?
I think if they care about the issue, they'll be here in person. I think there's no need to change the system for non-residents so that they can stay in their primary residence and be on Zoom calls and see what's going on here. So that's just my opinion on it.
But we didn't change the system, we changed all this because of a security.
Right, exactly, but I'm
One
just saying,
guy, yeah.
changing it back. Now, I mean, I can appreciate the comment that was made and the person and what he said. But if it's important to him, he can be here too.
I'm thinking about having a hearing. And somebody like Florence who lives in, Yuma. I think it's unrealistic. She might wanna listen to the discussion before she speaks. Because she has an opinion about that, that's how hearings are supposed to be, is that you get new information, you think about it, you disagree or you agree with it. And I'm thinking about people like Florence or Jim Ostrom or, people that are here part-time. To expect them to come all the way from Yuma, Arizona to speak at a public hearing, I think it's unnecessary. It's just a complication. And it's unnecessary. Most of the time when we had, uh, people could participate by, getting on Zoom. Most people just listened. There were very few people who actually took their 3 minutes to speak. And, I think that's helps people get informed about what the issues are with the town. And I think it's good policy, good public policy to try to facilitate as much participation rather than to have this really strict policy that we have now, which curbs participation.
So I've been participating and I guess mostly listening to county commissioner meetings via Zoom with a pre-registration option. So you indicate the week before that you're going to attend the Monday meeting and their admin approves you and sends you a link. I think that is a great procedure because not only does it avoid the security problem that we were trying to avoid, but it also is enough of a barrier that someone really has to care. We're gonna avoid just like, I guess, drunk people wanting to, say their 2 cents in a rude way. I think we could have a code of conduct that's very clear and very brief. And that they have to agree to when they register, and it could even be a one strike, like, you're no longer invited on our Zoom anymore, you were rude, or you didn't, abide by the rules. I think that talking about the days before Zoom and that Zoom was just for COVID, that's fine, that's nostalgic, the cat's out of the bag, we're not gonna stuff it back in, this technology exists and people rely on it. Not just for participating in local government, but for their jobs and for all hearings, all kinds of important things. I do like to see more participation. Governing into a vacuum kind of sucks, it feels bad. And I think if people care enough to go through the registration process ahead of time, not 5 minutes before our meeting, because someone told them that this was gonna be on the agenda, but someone that reviewed the packet. And a few days before, sent Anna something that said, hey, I'd love to be a part of the meeting, they agree to the code of conduct, they get the link. That's a lot of steps. I think that's gonna filter out the yahoos. I think there will also be people that will still just listen, and that's fine too, but I do think we need to reconsider this. There are young families, people that do need to stay home with their kids, they can't be here when their kid is sleeping at home. And I don't want to exclude any demographic in our community just because of the time of our meetings or because we don't offer a hybrid option. And we could do it on a probationary basis. If in a year we're like, wow, that sucked, that was way too much work for Anna, we never really got anywhere, then scratch it. But I think we could give this a try. It works great for the county. I'm usually the only person on there.
Well, I join the county sometimes too, but there's only one, maybe a 5 minute discussion that I'm interested in, the county talks about. And for me to drive all the way to Dove Creek just to participate is a big expense over a 5 minute discussion. And the way the county does it, I think is fabulous. All you do is you tell the clerk you'd like to be included and you get to be included for whatever part of the meeting you want to be included in.
I also want to take into consideration the risk that something might be continued, which we've done recently. We've taken things off of our agenda and pushed them to the next meeting or until we've received a complete application. And if someone is driving from Yuma or from Dove Creek to be a part of our meeting because of that item and we do that, That's a bummer. That's probably gonna discourage participation going forward. And I hate to do that. So again, yes, I prefer to be here in person. I prefer everyone to be here in person. Whether they agree with me or not, that doesn't matter. I just hate running into a vacuum, Dylan. You are not a vacuum. I appreciate you being here, but,
I get it, that's good, very good points.
yeah. So I appreciate.
We're not voting
Garrett's
on it
bringing this
tonight, but
back
I
up.
think that there's the other side of the story, and I just want both to make the same points.
Well, we have to decide what to do now. I mean, are we gonna?
Okay, well, I think we've all been heard. Tom, the last one, I mean, are you happy with the way things are now, or do you want to change it?
I am not a huge fan of Zoom meetings, even though you make some good points. People certainly can submit letters to the board regarding the agenda items, which is something that's always done on. Been fine. We decided to have it, Zoom. It's gonna prolong the meetings for sure, which is okay, because we want people's input. But personally, I think it's fine the way it is now. But, I mean,
With that being said, I think the majority is happy with the way things are now, and then to be in discussion.
Or do we want to, I mean, I don't care, we can put it on.
I just want to ask a question that maybe you guys could ponder. What are the special caveats now outside of moving and certain people that I'm not sure how they're chosen that have some official business with this town? Just out of curiosity, like how is that list disseminated? It kind of turns it into a not necessarily an EOE situation. Like how can people like Tom Bluefield and Mike McCartney or whomever else has official business for this town not have to come here?
No, we make accommodations for attorneys.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
In the policy, yes.
But what policy? I haven't seen it.
I just got a quick question. Then if we're making a decision on this now, I mean, this is something now hearing other opinions, especially from fellow board members. Is there a way do we have to make a decision right now, or can this be, we have to make one right now?
I don't think we have to make a decision right now, Pat.
I mean, I think 7 of us just shared our opinion. The 4 of us are not in favor of changing. I think that's the end of the discussion.
I mean, I don't.
Well, I think Betty might be on the fence here, and I didn't hear that I didn't hear 4 people would say, I want to keep it the way it is.
A show of hands for those who want to keep it the way it is.
That's just a hard one right now, though, because I like what the county's doing as far as having to go through some hoops to get in it. Because that's being fair.
Well, there you go, you got 4 people that say they want to.
So,
No, that's why we're making the decision right now.
I'm asking you to make the decision. It's the thing. It's a ridiculous topic. Either we do it or we don't. We don't need to waste any more time on it. Personally, as the person who has to run the meetings, although I don't have more authority than any of the rest of you, I don't want to deal with Zoom. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal even Chauncey tonight. He's breaking up. You can't hear him. It happens constantly. You sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks every time you get on there. You can't see, you're talking and people just, you want to talk about what's going on at the meeting, show up to the meeting. If you want to hear about it, watch it on Zoom. Period. That's the way I
You went to a vote, there's only 3 that said no, so.
I was gonna say, I mean, ironically, I thought I
Yeah.
got your Chauncey
So,
tonight, that I.
If we have 4 in favor, then I recommend the next steps is for staff to present something to us. And then we will make the rules and conditions. I'm gonna nominate Garish as our Zoom handler, because we need staff to take requests, let people in, do everything else.
Well,
Which would be great for you.
Before we do go to that step, Pat, I'd like to find out from staff what they think, I mean, how much additional burden would this be? What are their recommendations? What concerns do they have?
A lot of places have full staff, several staff who take care of the Zoom aspect of the meeting.
Yeah, so, you know, and like, for example, in Mountain Village, which I think has been referenced, or I've heard other people mention that, in the meetings that I've attended there, they usually have one or two clerks or clerk assistants dedicated specifically to running Zoom. They do a webinar platform, so they have to make people hosts or panelists or those type of things to switch rights to be able to do it. So it's pretty full time during the meeting. I don't think that's a good option for the town. Also, if we move to a webinar platform, we're talking, I mean, it's not a sizable amount of money by any means, but we're talking about another like $600 to $800 annually in Zoom cost, which in our budget isn't the end of the world. The way the county does it, I think, is a great opportunity for the town to kind of look into that option. I will say though, I have pre-registered for county meetings and the email just gets missed and then I can't participate even though I did jump through all the hoops. Usually I call a commissioner and they let me in and let the meeting person know that. So I think there are ways it can fall through the cracks. I'd like to spend a little more time researching that before I make an opinion on it. But we can provide additional context in that if that's the direction the board's going.
Sounds good.
All right, get it done.
We'll circle back next month.
Thank you, Chauncey.
And you can give us an update on the 4th of July.
Everything's moving along great. Band's booked. We'll announce that next month.
Over.
This is the
It'll be continued next one.
Say it again, Chauncey?
You're good.
Oh, sorry, I just hear some other things going on, so I wasn't sure what was happening.
No, we're just slightly interrupted, but you're good, keep going.
Oh, okay. We're gonna announce the band. It's a bluegrass band out of the Denver area. I think they'll draw a crowd, but an appropriate level crowd for our town and the amenities we have. We're working right now with a vendor who does a lot of production in Dolores area at the brewery and the Dolores River Festival to run sound and kind of do load-in and handling of that during the day, so we're not taxing Anna and myself with other commitments. We would, what's in the packet and one thing we'd like to discuss is we would like to offer a fundraising opportunity to the Rico Skate Park nonprofit for the phase 2, which would be Will Nolan as the head of that organization, doing food through Black Salt and getting a liquor license to sell beer and wine at the concert, which will be 3 to 6 that day. We think that would be a nice way to get more funding for that phase. So that is something I spoke to Will about it. He would be excited to do it. Is something I like the board's opinion on, so he can move through the liquor license process if that's agreeable. And then Sunday of that weekend, we're discussing, I've discussed a little bit with all of the historic players in this space, Aaron, and a little bit with Chief Jones, but trying to still hammer down the details on that. Our plan is with the event happening at the 4th down at the new park and utilizing the pavilion. We'd still like to highlight the other park that we have and the field space up there. So we'll be looking at doing some child-friendly things like a watermelon eating competition, a tie-dyeing booth with some cool like commemorative Colorado 150 Rico shirts and a couple other things to kind of get people to show up, stay engaged, and stay around for a little bit. So those details will be forthcoming. I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention to know that we've been actively working on it. Starting the first week of May, we'll start advertising it and getting the word out. Very excited to see how this event unfolds and see what opportunities it leads in the future. And just wanted to get some confirmation that people would be comfortable offering that space to Will as a fundraiser for the Rico Skate Park nonprofit.
Good?
Yes.
Yeah, sounds great.
July. Dylan? All right, next up.
I don't think we have enough information for the next,
Well,
honestly.
we're gonna start into this. The ordinance review is something that we've been talking about for a while. Something I started saying, we keep making rules, we should start getting rid of the ones that are in the books that are irrelevant or contradict or whatever. So I've been asking for maybe staff to pull a couple and give them to us every month to see what we think. It ended up, we got a list of all of them, so I'm gonna let Chauncey explain where we're at, as
Thank you.
far as the conflict and or the request and what we got and what's going on.
Totally. Thank you, Mayor. So this was something that Pat had brought up, something also we need to start looking into as we move into this idea of a municipal code and codification instead of all these standalone ordinance we have having a municipal code. So we just wanted to get these ordinances out. It seems like one of the best ways for council to kind of understand how the town is functioning is to provide these materials and having people start review them. So it seems like great benefit in that and just going through that process. I kind of foresee next steps. We have ordinances, you know, myself and Anna have spent a fair amount of time looking at this. I know the mayor has, and I'm sure some of you all have. We have a handful, if not 10 plus ordinances we'd love to just see repealed. That in my mind is the next step, the duties of the mayor, the town manager contract with Eric, kind of pulling those ordinances out and repealing them and making sure we're just not keeping anything on the book that doesn't make sense. And then moving forward, my plan or the intent is to then streamline this process and pull all the ordinances into an additional kind of standalone document or organize on that page of the spreadsheet of municipal code ordinances. So not budgets, not land transfers or vacations of right of way. Those are what we need to operate administratively, but kind of get all the policy in one place. And then that can really be the springboard for the board to start diving into the ones I think are pertinent and relevant that we need to start tackling in the near term. And that way we can make some selections on next steps and on ordinances we want to spend the time on. I think now that we've made it through the special event, pavilion, all those items, this is kind of the next step in this process.
Anything the board like to talk about now, make sure the ones who got through are on the list, or just wait and see what we get next month or when it comes.
Well, the one ordinance that says the mayor does not have voting in the town board of trustee meetings. I don't know if you have heartburn about not being able to vote, but the ordinance says you can't.
Well, here's the thing, I actually prefer that method. I honestly do. However, that ordinance has been superseded by the home rule charter, which states the contrary. So that's where we used to do that, where the mayor did not vote. It's a tiebreaker. Led the meeting, did not vote.
If it's already been taken, it's already been nullified by the,
But it was never repealed after, that's why we're here.
right,
Because
let's repeal it then.
Housekeeping.
that's absolutely,
Yeah.
unless we would like to go the other direction.
I don't know.
Which is fine with me, that would take an amendment to the letter, to the home rule charter, which would take a vote.
No, I don't think we have to discuss
No.
that now.
I don't have a problem.
Subject is, if Chauncey's
I
got
like
10 of
the
them
other
you would
way.
like to get repealed, let's get them out and
Yeah, I think
Look at it
John's got that on his list.
get
Okay,
them out.
There's one that says you can't beat the marshal or you'll get fined 3 strawberries, so that one needs to go, simple things like that.
Yeah, let's, I think we can start there.
Livestock inciting riots, there's a $5 fine. I think there's a lot of them that are already covered under our, not even our own personal municipal law, but the state law, county law. Jerry knows what to write the ticket for, and you beat them up, right?
so what would be helpful, Dorothy, I think, helpful for me if you could somehow star or asterisk those that you and Anna recognized are like the one that I brought up on.
Yeah,
mayor-
ideally we'll have an ordinance that will just be an ordinance to repeal all these, and they'll all be spelled out in there, and we can circulate that in advance of the meeting, in advance of the packet next month, so that way you can have additional time to look through it to make sure you're comfortable repealing said ordinance.
Yeah, I think you could just email us a list of the ones.
Yep. Yeah, we'll
That'd be
get that to you. We can get that out next week, and then hopefully we can get a repeal ordinance in place and just strip those off the book.
Awesome. That'll make Pat happy.
Yeah.
Then we can pass more ordinances.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to fill those slots.
Get rid of them all.
No, like I said, there's a lot of things that contradict the other ones, just like you're saying. I think when the home rule charter was made, there was, didn't really get looked at the standing ordinances that might conflict with it, and it was just assumed that this is the new rule. And it, you know, I'm sure our lawyer could say, well, yeah, that superseded that and protect us in court, but I like to argue and other people do too, and if I was looking at two different things, there's a lot to argue about. Housekeeping.
Yeah, with what?
All right, so everybody, any more?
Well, just.
Any other silly ordinances specifically, people who
Oh,
are
no,
now?
this is not having to do with an ordinance, but I just wanted to, before we adjourn, I just realized looking at the date of next month's meeting. I'm scheduled to have shoulder surgery the day before, and I can't guarantee what I'm gonna be like. So I just wanted to just give people a heads up on that. If we're not, I don't know if we're done ordinances or not, I apologize.
Congratulations on getting the surgery lined up.
Yeah, shoulder, taking 11 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I will also be out of town for the May meeting. I've already let Pat and Chauncey know that I will be zooming in for the first time.
That's what Zoom's for.
Yeah.
I've avoided it.
We're happy to accommodate you. All right. That it for that one? To be continued?
I'll make sure we're done, let's go on, I'm making a motion.
To be continued.
All right. And I will.
Benny's got a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
It's all in favor?
Give me a.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
On,
Yeah, it's hard to.